My stepbrother got $85,000 of my college fund for Broadway dreams. 10 years later, he was broke, and when my parents begged for him, I shut the door. I am a 33-year-old female family medicine physician who has my own practice in Portland. But 10 years ago, I was a 17-year-old who had just been cheated out of her entire future by parents who believed musical theater was more important than medical school. Here's how things went down. My mother, Marianne, married my stepfather, Roland, when I was 13. He arrived with his 16-year-old son, Adrian, who quickly became the golden child of our household. Adrian was a wannabe Broadway star who spent his waking hours singing show tunes and practicing jazz hands in the mirror. I must admit that the kid has decent pipes. However, he possessed the work ethic of a sloth and the ego of Kanye West. Roland was one of those divorced dads who tried too hard to be the cool parent. He was constantly bragging about Adrian's artistic abilities and how he was going to be the next big thing on Broadway. Every topic eventually came back to Adrian's most recent audition or performance. Meanwhile, I was getting straight A's in AP chemistry and biology, volunteering at the hospital, and plotting my path to medical school. The bias was so evident that it was nearly laughable. Roland's reaction to my acceptance into the National Honor Society was, "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Adrian got the lead in the school musical?" When I scored in the 95th percentile on my PATs, Marianne clapped politely and then immediately shifted the conversation to how Adrian needed new headshots for his portfolio. Adrian milked the spotlight for all it was worth. This child would break into song during dinner chats. Not kidding. We'd be talking about grocery lists when he'd suddenly start singing Defying Gravity from Wicked like we were his personal audience. Roland would beam with pride as I sat there, wondering if this was how a stroke felt. The real stinger was how they handled our various activities. My science fair projects received, "Very nice, dear." Adrian's community theater performances were attended by the entire family, with flowers and a celebratory luncheon following. I once won first place in the Regional Scientific Olympiad, and Roland's only comment was that we could leave early because Adrian had rehearsal. I recall one particular incident during my junior year that completely captured the familial dynamics. I'd been working on an antibiotic resistance study in local water sources for months. I spent weekends at the university lab, conducted fieldwork to collect materials, and presented discoveries that impressed my AP biology teacher sufficiently to recommend me for a state-level science competition. Adrian auditioned for the lead in the community theater's performance of Guys and Dolls. The same week I learned I had won second place at state, a major accomplishment that would look well on college applications. He received a callback. Not the part, but a callback. Guess which accomplishment dominated family dinner discussions for the next month? Roland actually printed the callback notice and placed it on the refrigerator. My state-level science medal went into a drawer someplace, but I assumed college would be my escape. I'd been saving every penny from my part-time job at the drugstore, 3 shifts each week after school and 8-hour weekend stints. The labor was quite tedious, stocking shelves, running the register, and assisting customers who couldn't understand why their insurance wouldn't pay their pet's medication. But each paycheck went directly into my college savings account. More importantly, Marianne had always assured me that my college fund would cover the rest. This was not some hazy parental commitment. This was a real account begun by my biological father, Martin Reinhardt, who died in a vehicle accident when I was 8. Martin had been a sensible and forward-thinking engineer who established an education fund that increased steadily over time through careful investments. By my senior year, it had risen to almost $85,000. Perhaps not enough for Harvard Medical School, but more than enough to get me through undergraduate school debt-free and provide a solid platform for medical school applications. My entire path was planned. 4 years of pre-med at Oregon State, maintaining a good GPA, performing well on the MCATs, being accepted to Oregon Health and Science University, completing residency, and eventually becoming Dr. Clara Reinhardt. That is where I messed up. I assumed that having my deceased father's money set aside exclusively for my schooling meant it was mine. The bomb dropped in the spring of my senior year, right in the midst of college decision season. I was investigating medical schools, comparing pre-med programs, and preparing to accept my seat at Oregon State. I'd been admitted to numerous institutions, but Oregon State provided the finest balance of academic reputation and in-state tuition. Marianne knocked on my door with that fake charming voice she employed when she was going to deliver bad news. She used the same tone when she told me we couldn't afford the senior class trip to Washington, D.C., or that I couldn't acquire a car for my 16th birthday due to financial constraints. "Honey, we need to talk about college." I imagined she wanted to talk about lunch plans or dorm room assignments. Consider asking about my class schedule or campus orientation. Boy, was I mistaken. Your stepfather and I have been talking, and we've decided to redirect your college fund toward Adrian's career development. I looked at her as if she had started speaking ancient Greek. The terms literally did not compute. What do you mean redirect? Well, Adrian got accepted to that intensive summer program at Juilliard. And then there's the year-long acting conservatory in New York. This is his shot, Clara. His one opportunity to really make it in the industry. The words hit me like a physical punch in the stomach. I felt nauseated. That's my college fund. Martin Reinhardt left that money for my education. Marianne's face tightened and became protective, the expression she often used when she knew she was being unfair, but was determined to maintain her stance. Roland is your father now, and we make decisions as a family. Adrian's dreams are just as valid as yours. Adrian's dreams. I'm planning to become a doctor. I am going to save lives. He wants to dance about in tights, singing show tunes. Don't be so dramatic. There will be other opportunities for you to go to college. Adrian's window is closing. He needs to strike while the iron is hot. Strike while the iron is hot. This was about a 20-year-old who had never worked a real job, never paid for anything himself, and whose crowning achievement was being cast as chorus member number 3 in the high school production of Oklahoma. You can take out student loans like everyone else, Roland said from the doorway, where he'd clearly been listening. Character building experience. Adrian's artistic development can't wait. Character building, right? Because working 3 jobs to pay for medical school while Adrian lived in Manhattan pursuing his art was exactly what Martin Reinhardt intended when he established that college fund. I used every reason I could think of. The money came from my father, not Roland. I had real professional opportunities with definite earning potential, whereas Adrian was following a pipe dream in an industry where 90% of actors are unemployed at any given time. Medical school was costly and competitive. I needed that financial basis to have a serious chance at success. Nothing worked. Roland had persuaded Marianne that Adrian was the family's best investment. Their ticket to fame and prosperity. One successful Broadway show and he'll be set for life, he said again. Meanwhile, doctors are a dime a dozen. Doctors are available in abundance. This comes from a guy who had a Jiffy Lube franchise and thought changing your oil every 3,000 miles was the pinnacle of automotive sophistication. The conversation went in circles for 2 hours. Roland kept mentioning return on investment and promoting artistic potential. Marianne insisted that this was what families did for one another, and that I was selfish for not understanding Adrian's needs. I kept emphasizing that this was actually theft, taking money intended for one person's education, and giving it to someone else totally. Roland finally dropped the true bomb. The decision's already been made. We've spoken to the financial advisor and begun the transfer process. Adrian's program starts in June, so we needed to act quickly. They hadn't contacted me, asked for my views, and had already begun moving my money to pay Adrian's fantasy before even informing me of it. The worst part was seeing Adrian's reaction after they told him. The kid did not even have the decency to feel guilty. He's just started looking at New York residences and discussing how he'll thank the family in his Tony Award acceptance speech. Don't worry, Clara, he replied with a patronizing smile that made me want to throw something at him. When I make it big, I'll help pay for your medical school. Think of this as an investment in both our futures. An investment in my Broadway dreams. Using my deceased father's money. I locked myself in my room for the remainder of the day, alternately angry and depressed. Everything I'd worked for, every strategy I'd devised, and every sacrifice I'd made hinged on that college money. Without it, medical school became immensely more difficult, if not impossible. That summer was harsh in ways I had not anticipated. While Adrian was having a great time at Juilliard, sharing Instagram stories from trendy Manhattan cafes and networking events, I was working extra shifts at the drugstore and applying for every scholarship, grant and loan I could find. The financial assistance office at Oregon State became my second home. Mrs. Schneider, my guidance counselor, guided me through the maze of applications and procedures. She was aware of my circumstances and was silently outraged, despite her attempts to remain professional. There are options, she explained during one of our discussions. Scholarship applications, loan paperwork, and explanations of work-study programs were all spread out on her desk. Scholarships for merit, need-based help, work-study programs, and student loans. It won't be easy, but it's doable. What she didn't say, but we both understood, was that it would be a lot more difficult than it should be. Students with familial support can concentrate on academics and extracurricular activities. Students like me would have to work 30 hours a week just to survive. I ended up putting together a financial aid package that covered approximately 60% of my expenses. Academic scholarships funded a portion of the cost. Need-based assistance assisted with lodging and board, but there remained a large deficit. The rest came from working nights at a 24-hour diner near school called the Sunrise Cafe, where I served coffee and pie to inebriated college students and shift workers beginning at 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3 evenings a week. My freshman year schedule looked like it was devised by a sadist. Classes throughout the day, study time in the afternoon, and job starting at 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., sleep for 4 hours, and repeat. I survived on vending machine coffee and whatever free food I could find at the cafe. Day-old muffins, soup about to be thrown out, and the occasional sandwich from a compassionate cook. Meanwhile, Adrian shared Instagram stories from trendy Manhattan cafes, discussing his artistic path and networking with other budding performers. The $85,000 that should have paid for my school went for his coffee shop meetings, acting classes, and what appeared to be a rather active social life. My grades suffered during the first year. Not bad. I maintained a 3.4 GPA, but not the 3.8 I had hoped for. It's difficult to perform academically when you only get 4 hours of sleep and your biggest meal of the day is usually a granola bar between courses. But I adapted. Found study groups that met while I was awake. Developed ties with teachers during office hours, when most students were socializing. Discovered that medical school admissions committees favored individuals who had worked their way through college. It showed determination and work ethic that trust fund children couldn't match. Adrian's dispatches from New York were more intermittent and ambiguous. The Juilliard summer program went well, but the year-long conservatory was reportedly more difficult than he had anticipated. His Instagram posts ranged from artistic revelations to concerns about the competitive environment of New York theater, the cost of living, and the challenge of standing out amid so many excellent performers. Roland kept making excuses on our periodic family phone calls. He's finding his artistic voice. The New York scene is tough to break into. He just needs more time to establish himself in the industry. Adrian truly needed a job, but it seemed beneath him. When I spoke with him personally, he complained about auditions that did not result in callbacks, pricey classes that did not produce the expected results, and the general difficulty of making it as an artist in New York. By my sophomore year, I'd discovered my rhythm. Better time management resulted in better marks. I raised my GPA to 3.7. The diner work was still hard, but I had been promoted to shift supervisor, which meant somewhat higher pay and more consistent hours. I'd also started coaching other students in organic chemistry, which was more lucrative than restaurant labor and looked well on medical school applications. Adrian, meantime, had relocated from his luxury Manhattan apartment to a shared space in Brooklyn. The updates from New York grew less regular, and when he did post on social media, he frequently talked about the difficulties of being an artist rather than his triumphs. Junior year provided both opportunity and problems. I'd begun volunteering at the campus health center, gaining hands-on experience with patient care that would prove invaluable for medical school applications. Dr. Laurent, the volunteer coordinator, became an informal mentor, guiding me through the medical school admission process and even writing one of my recommendation letters. But junior year also brought the news that Adrian was returning home. After 3 years and the loss of the majority of my college savings, the New York experiment was officially over. He was 23, broke, and settling back into his childhood bedroom as if nothing had occurred. Roland framed it as a chance to recuperate for his next phase, while also bringing key industry experience back to the local market. What it really meant was that Adrian had spent $85,000 of my inheritance and had nothing to show for it but stories about auditions he didn't get and connections that didn't go anywhere. The family relationships at holiday gatherings were unsettling. Adrian would regale everyone with stories from his experience in the industry, including actors and directors he'd met briefly at networking events. Meanwhile, I was working 16-hour days between classes, employment, and volunteering to prepare for the MCATs, while everyone else was engrossed with Adrian's stories from the Big Apple. Senior year was hectic. Medical school applications, MCAT prep, maintaining grades, and working enough hours to cover basic living expenses. I took the MCAT twice. The initial score was satisfactory, but not exceptional. After months of studying with borrowed prep books and free web tools, the second attempt turned out considerably better. Medical school interviews were their own form of torture. Professional clothing was out of my price range. Travel expenses cut into my grocery budget. The pressure of competing with applicants whose parents could afford test prep classes and application advisors. But somehow it worked. I was accepted to Oregon Health and Science University, my ideal school. Excellent reputation and reasonable cost for in-state students. Not a full scholarship, but manageable with loans and the part-time employment I intended to do while medical school. 4 years later, I graduated from Oregon State University with a 3.9 GPA in biochemistry. Not bad for someone who had been working 25 to 30 hours per week in college and subsisting on vending machine dinners and day-old diner pastries. Medical school was even more difficult without family support. While other students were able to focus solely on their academics, I was working weekends as a medical scribe at urgent care clinics, coaching undergraduates in organic chemistry, and conducting medical research for faculty members who paid graduate student rates for data analysis. These loans were terrible. Each semester came new promissory notes, debt totals, and projections for how long it would take to repay everything. By graduation, I owed approximately $250,000, which was modest for a doctor's wage, but still represented a mound of debt that would follow me for decades. Throughout medical school, I kept track of Adrian through social media and family gossip. He'd taken a job at a music store in town, was occasionally acting in local community theater shows, and was still living at home with Marianne and Roland, talking about his music career as if he was only in between major opportunities. The difference was startling. I was studying to diagnose heart attacks and deliver babies while working 80-hour weeks on clinical rotations, preparing to save lives and make a meaningful contribution to society. Adrian was selling guitar picks and auditioned for the Grease dinner theater play. I finished from medical school with honors and began my residency in family medicine at Portland General. 3 years of punishing schedules, overnight hours, emergency department rotations, and learning to manage everything from regular checks to life-threatening situations. But I loved it. Every challenging case, every complicated diagnosis, every patient I assisted, it all seemed worthwhile. During residency, family updates became increasingly troubling. Adrian had been laid off from the music store and was now working part-time at Guitar Center. Still living at home and chasing his dreams. He is approaching 30 and has no genuine professional prospects or life skills. Roland's health had deteriorated due to excessive stress, a bad diet, and what appeared to be untreated cardiac problems that he continued to ignore. Marianne was working part-time at a dental office but not earning enough to support 3 individuals, especially because Adrian contributed almost nothing to household expenses. I completed residency and began my own family medicine practice in a lovely Portland suburb, gradually growing a patient base and ultimately earning real money for the first time in my adult life. The practice exceeded all of my expectations. Assisting families, treating children, and elderly people. Being the type of doctor who genuinely listens and spends time with each patient. My student loans were finally affordable on a doctor's wage. I'd rented a little house with a garden, purchased a dependable car, and begun to consider genuinely starting a life rather than simply existing until the next exam or loan payment. Adrian, meanwhile, was 31 years old, still living in his boyhood bedroom, working part-time in retail, and occasionally posting on Facebook about impending projects that never materialized. Then the call arrived. On a calm Tuesday afternoon, I was in my office checking patient charts when Marianne called, crying profusely. Roland had been experiencing chest pains for several weeks but disregarded them because he didn't have time to be sick. The typical masculine response to worrying symptoms. He eventually collapsed at the Jiffy Lube during the morning shift and was sent to the hospital. According to the emergency department physician who contacted Marianne with updates, she had suffered a massive heart attack. The doctors are saying he needs surgery, she wailed into the phone, multiple bypasses, and they want to keep him in intensive care for at least a week. My medical training kicked in instantly. I inquired about his symptoms, timing, and what the cardiologist said about prognosis and therapy options. I began mentally calculating recovery time, probable complications, and the level of follow-up care he would require. "How much is this going to cost?" I said, already knowing the answer would be awful. That's when the true trouble emerged. Roland's health insurance through the Jiffy Lube business provided only catastrophic coverage, a large deductible, a narrow network, and the type of plan that works well for everyday treatment but bankrupts you when anything severe happens. They were looking at around $200,000 in hospital expenditures, assuming everything went well with no issues or lengthy recuperation time. Roland's plan would probably cover about 40% of that when the deductible was met. Marianne was worrying in the way that happens when someone who has never experienced major financial stress suddenly finds herself facing the possibility of losing everything. They didn't have any savings. Roland spent the most of his salary supporting Adrian's lifestyle and paying for his numerous professional development expenses. Roland had taken out a reverse mortgage on the house a few years before to support an unsuccessful business expansion. They were essentially screwed. "We don't know what to do," Marianne admitted, her voice breaking. "We thought maybe, since you're a doctor now." There it was. I'd been expecting it for years. "You want me to help with the medical bills?" "It's not that we expect you to pay everything," she responded quickly, presumably realizing how harsh that sounded. But maybe you could talk to the doctors, work something out, help us figure out payment plans or charity care options. Help them make up payment arrangements with the money I earned while working my ass off in medical school, while they used my inheritance to fund Adrian's Manhattan experience. I'll think about it, I assured her, the most non-committal statement I could muster. That evening, I sat in my living room, the first place I'd ever lived where I could afford to decorate tastefully, and really thought about what to do. A part of me wanted to help. Despite everything, Roland was not a bad person. He was simply a father who had made extremely poor decisions about how to support his son. Marianne had been weak rather than evil, allowing Roland to persuade her that pouring money at Adrian's dreams was more essential than protecting my future. But every time I felt sorry about their position, I recalled being in that 24-hour diner at 2 a.m. During medical school, I studied anatomy while selling coffee to inebriated college students because I couldn't afford to study full-time like my colleagues, who were supported by their parents. I recall eating ramen noodles for dinner 3 times a week because that was all I could afford after paying for textbooks and lab fees. I remembered the continual stress of loan applications, scholarship essays, and the exhaustion of working and studying at the same time, all while Adrian posted Instagram stories from fancy Manhattan restaurants. The following morning, I drove to my childhood home for the first time in 3 years. The house looked exactly the same from the outside, except for Adrian's car in the driveway, a respectable Honda Accord that probably cost more than I'd spent on food during my whole medical school career. The grass needed mowing, and the paint was flaking a little, but it was still the middle-class suburban home where I grew up. I knocked on the door and waited. Adrian responded, as if he had just awoken, despite the fact that it was 11 a.m. He still had that entitled expression, albeit it faltered somewhat as he noticed me standing there. "Oh, hey Clara. Marianne's at the hospital with Roland." "I know. I came to see you." He let me in, and I took a glance around the living room, where I had spent my childhood. The furniture is the same, and the walls are covered in family memorabilia, including several framed pictures of Adrian from various stage shows throughout the years. I saw that my academic achievements were not reflected anywhere. "This is really scary, you know," Adrian replied, snuggling into the couch as if he were about to have a long chat. "Roland's like really sick, and the money situation is totally screwed." "Yeah, I heard. What are you doing to help?" He seems perplexed by the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what are you doing to help with the medical bills? You're 31 years old, you live here rent-free. They've supported your career attempts for over a decade. What's your plan for helping them through this crisis?" Adrian shuffled uneasily, obviously not used to being asked to accept responsibility for anything. "I mean, I'm working at Guitar Center. I don't exactly have medical bill money lying around, right? But you could get a second job, or maybe a better primary job that actually uses that expensive training they paid for you to get. It's not that simple. I'm still pursuing my music career. I can't just abandon everything I've worked for. Everything you'd worked for with my college fund." The audacity was amazing. "Adrian, what happened to the $85,000? "What do you mean?" "My college fund. The $85,000 from my father that was supposed to pay for my education. Where did it go?" He had the decency to appear uncomfortable. "At least that was like years ago, Clara. It went to my training, living expenses in New York, networking opportunities, investment in my future, right? And what return did they get on that investment?" The hush stretched between us. Adrian picked at a thread on the couch cushion, becoming increasingly intrigued in the upholstery pattern. "Look," his final response was, "I know you're probably still mad about the college thing, but that worked out fine. You're a doctor now, you made it work. I made it work by accumulating $250,000 in student debt and working 3 jobs throughout medical school. You made it work by spending my dead father's money on acting classes and Manhattan rent. That's not fair. Marianne and Roland made that decision as parents. I didn't force them to do anything." "No, but you sure didn't object to it either. And you didn't exactly rush to pay it back when your Broadway dreams didn't pan out." Adrian rose up and paced toward the window as people do when confronted with hard truths. "What do you want me to say, Clara? I'm sorry." "Fine. I'm sorry it worked out that way, but I can't change the past. And Roland's sick now. This is bigger than old family drama." "You're right. This is bigger than old family drama. This is about accountability." I dug into my purse and took out a CD, not a burned CD with a handwritten label. This was professionally created, with glossy artwork and all. Adrian's eyes widened as he noticed it. "Where did you get that?" "Your MySpace page from 2017, remember? You spent about $3,000 of my college fund getting these demo CDs professionally made, posted about it constantly, how this was going to be your breakthrough, how record labels would hear your talent and offer contracts. Adrian's cheeks turned red. That was a different phase of my career. I'm more focused on live performance now. Right. Well, I bought a copy off eBay. Figured it was the least I could do since I technically helped pay for it. I set the CD on the coffee table between us and went to the door. Adrian followed me. Clara, wait. What are you doing? Are you going to help with Roland's bills or not? I turned around at the door, gazing at this 31-year-old man who still lived in his childhood bedroom, had squandered my fortune on a failing goal, and was now pleading with me to help the family who had sacrificed my future for his own. I'm going to help exactly as much as this family helped me get through medical school. What does that mean? It means you should probably start checking couch cushions for spare change. Maybe sell some of those professional headshots from your portfolio. That evening, Marianne called again. Roland's surgery went well, but he would be in the hospital for at least a week. The bills were already piling up and they'd received an estimate for the whole treatment cost, $170,000, not counting follow-up care and rehabilitation. Did you talk to Adrian? She inquired. I did. Interesting conversation. He's still living the dream, apparently. Clara, please. I know you're angry about the college fund situation, but this is life or death. Roland could die if he doesn't get proper follow-up care. Marianne, Roland is going to get proper follow-up care. That's how hospitals work in America. They don't just let heart surgery patients die because of billing disputes. But the debt will destroy us. We'll lose the house. We don't know what to do. I took a long breath, attempting to strike the appropriate balance between honesty and brutality. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to talk to the hospital's financial counselor about payment plans. Every hospital has them. You're going to apply for charity care programs. Most hospitals have sliding scale assistance for people who can't afford treatment. Adrian is going to get a second job, or maybe his first real job, and contribute to household expenses so you can focus on paying medical bills. But Adrian's career is working retail part-time and occasionally performing in community theater. He's 31 years old. It's time to be realistic about his prospects and his responsibilities to this family. You could just help us. You're a doctor. You make good money now. There it was. The entitlement that had shaped my entire childhood. The belief that my success was somehow shared property, whereas Adrian's misfortunes were only transitory setbacks necessitating additional investment. You're right. I do make good money. I make good money because I worked my ass off to get through medical school without family support. I make good money because I spent 4 years eating ramen noodles and working nights, while my classmates went to study groups funded by parents who could afford to support their children's education. I make good money because I graduated with a mountain of debt that I'm still paying off. We did what we thought was best at the time. You did what was convenient for your new husband and his son. You sacrificed my future to fund Adrian's fantasy. And now you want me to rescue you from the consequences of that decision. It wasn't a fantasy. Adrian is talented. Marianne. Adrian is a 31-year-old man living in his childhood bedroom, working part-time at Guitar Center, whose biggest accomplishment in a decade is a demo CD that no record label ever bothered to listen to. Meanwhile, I'm actually helping people, saving lives, contributing to society in meaningful ways. Which one of us turned out to be the better investment? She was silent for a long time. So, you won't help? I'm not giving you money, if that's what you're asking. But I'll give you something better. I'll give you the same thing you gave me when I needed support for my education. Advice to figure it out on your own. And good luck making it work. That's cruel. No, Marianne. Cruel is taking a teenager's college fund, money specifically left by her deceased father for her education, and giving it to your stepson for acting classes. What I'm doing is justice. I hung up and blocked their number. The following few months were unexpectedly calm. I concentrated on my practice, which was rapidly expanding as word traveled about the new family doctor who genuinely listened to patients and took time for I'd begun specializing in preventative care and chronic illness appointments. Management, finding great satisfaction in assisting patients in maintaining their health rather than just addressing catastrophes. 2 weeks later, my cousin Elise called. She had heard about Roland's dilemma and my refusal to aid through the family grapevine and wanted to hear my side of the story. Because what I'm hearing from Marianne doesn't sound like the Clara I know, she explained delicately. I recounted everything, The college fund theft, Adrian's failing career sponsored by my inheritance, the years of favoritism and dismissive treatment, and their current expectation that I'd protect them from the repercussions of their own actions. Elise was quiet for a bit after I finished. Jesus, Clara, I had no idea about the college fund thing. That's incredibly messed up. Yeah, well, water under the bridge now. Is it though? I mean, how do you feel about how this is all playing out? I thought about the question thoroughly. You know what? I'm actually at peace with it. I spent years being angry about what they did to me. But building my career, proving I could succeed without their support, that's been incredibly satisfying. Now they need help, and they're finding out what it feels like when family doesn't come through for the important stuff. What about Roland though? I mean, he could actually have complications, need ongoing care. Roland isn't going to die, Elise. They'll work out payment plans with the hospital. Maybe qualify for charity care programs. Figure something out the way millions of Americans do every year. Hospitals have entire departments dedicated to helping people navigate these situations. But they'll have to do it themselves. And maybe they'll learn what it's like to struggle financially for something important, like I did for 8 years. Elise understood. She'd seen the family dynamics throughout the years during holiday parties and noticed how differently Adrian and I were treated, but she'd never realized the magnitude of it. A month later, I learned through the family network that Roland had been discharged and was doing well at home. They had qualified for the hospital's charity care program, which covered roughly 60% of the costs. The remaining bills were set up on a 10-year payment plan with lower interest rates. More importantly, Adrian had secured a second job working evenings at a call center. He continued to live at home but was now contributing to household expenses for the first time in his adult life. Apparently, the financial crisis served as a wake-up call concerning the realistic prospects for his music career. Marianne had returned to work full-time as a dental receptionist, her first full-time position in years. They were getting by, but there wasn't enough money for Adrian's artistic ambitions or professional advancement. Adrian contacted me personally 6 months after Roland's surgery, rather than through Marianne or other family members, by text message. Hey Clara, I know things have been weird between us, but I wanted to reach out. Roland's recovery is going really well, and I've been thinking a lot about what you said about accountability and responsibility. I got a better job, assistant manager at a music store downtown. Not just retail sales, still doing music stuff on weekends, but treating it more like a hobby now instead of expecting it to pay the bills. Anyway, I wanted to say I'm sorry about the college fund. It was the first sincere apology I had ever received from him. Not flawless, not thorough, but honest and detailed, as opposed to the customary non-apology apologies I had received from my family. I replied with the following. Thanks for saying that, Adrian. I'm glad Roland's doing better and that you're taking more responsibility. That means a lot. That was it. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no return to family dinners, but rather a sense of tranquility that felt more valuable than forced forgiveness. Another 6 months have passed. My practice continues to grow. I'd recruited a nurse practitioner to help with the patient load and had finally paid off my undergraduate school loans. Still had medical school debt, but it was manageable and steadily diminishing. I was at my office late one evening, finishing up patient files and insurance paperwork, when I received a call from an unknown local number. Dr. Reinhardt, this is Roland. My stepfather's voice was different, lower and uncertain than I remembered from childhood. Hi Roland, how are you feeling? Much better. The cardiologist says I'm ahead of schedule on recovery. Listen, I was wondering if I could take you to coffee sometime. There are some things I'd like to say, and I don't think I can do them justice over the phone. We met the following Saturday in a neutral spot, a coffee shop near my office that I occasionally stop by between appointments. Roland appeared older, more fatigued than I remembered, and healthier than I had expected considering the significant operation. I owe you an apology, he began without explanation. Several apologies actually. I waited, curious about where this was headed. The college fund thing was wrong, not just misguided or poorly thought out, it was wrong. I convinced Marianne it was the right decision for the family, but it wasn't. That money was meant for your education, specifically set aside by your father for that purpose, and we had no right to redirect it. Why did you do it? Roland swirled his coffee for a long time, apparently contemplating how to respond honestly. Honestly, because I was desperate to prove that supporting Adrian's dreams was the right choice. I'd been divorced, felt like I'd failed at being a father the first time around, and I wanted to show Adrian that I believed in him completely. But I did it at your expense, and that was inexcusable. What about Adrian? Have you talked to him about all this? We've had several long conversations over the past few months. The financial crisis was a wake-up call for him about taking responsibility for his own life instead of expecting other people to fund his dreams. He's been contributing to household expenses, found better employment, started acting like the adult he should have been years ago. I'm glad he's growing up. Roland, I need you to know Marianne never stopped feeling guilty about the college fund decision. She talks about it constantly now, how proud she is that you made it through medical school and built a successful practice despite our lack of support. How much she regrets listening to me about redirecting that money to Adrian. Then why didn't she ever say that to me directly? Pride, I think, and maybe fear that you'd reject the apology or tell us it was too little, too late. Roland reached into his jacket and took out a folded piece of paper. This is a promissory note. We can't pay you back the full $85,000 all at once, but we've worked out a budget to repay you over 10 years with interest. It's not enough compensation and it's not soon enough, but it's what we can realistically manage given our current financial situation. I unfurled the document and examined it. It was extensive and well thought out, including monthly payment amounts, interest computations, and contingency plans in case their financial status altered. The interest rate was significantly more than what they had to give. You don't have to do this, Roland. Yes, we do. We stole your inheritance and used it to fund a fantasy. Now we're going to pay it back, even if it takes until we're both dead to do it. I folded the paper and stored it in my purse. Roland, I want you to know I'm not angry anymore. I was for a long time, furious about what felt like a betrayal, but building my career on my own terms, proving I could succeed without family support, that actually healed something in me. I'm grateful for the struggle in some ways because it made me stronger and more self-reliant. That doesn't make what we did right. No, but it makes me who I am today. And I like who I've become. We drank our coffee and talked about more appropriate topics. Roland's rehabilitation, my practice, and the weather. Normal chat between two grown-ups who have discovered a way to cohabit together. My sister dragged me outside and humiliated me at her own engagement party. Her fiancé overheard everything, and now she wants me to lie to keep him. I am in dire need of an outside perspective right now, so please help me out if you can. Sorry if there is anything incorrect with this post. I'm also a little out of sorts psychologically, so this may come across as rambling. A few events in my life have left me in a difficult situation. I'm being blamed for causing difficulties in my sister's relationship, even though I didn't do anything. I didn't know her fiancé until we met at her engagement celebration. That was 3 days ago. Since then, everything has gone horribly wrong. My parents and sister have been constantly calling and harassing me. My Oma Helena says I'm right, but I'm just under a lot of strain right now. The truth is, my sister's fiancé is questioning their engagement after witnessing her mistreat me at the engagement party. Before I go into what happened, I need to give you some background on my life. My parents, Carl and Monica, 50 male and 50 female, have always despised me. It has been evident to me since I was born. I mean, I don't remember my early years, but as far as I recall, my parents detested me. I was, and still am, the family's ultimate black sheep. The black sheep and the scapegoat, to be specific. My sister Clara, 24, is 5 years younger than me. She is my parents' golden child and feels the same way they do about me. In fact, she hates me as much as my parents do. Growing up, I was neglected and later mistreated by everyone in my family. My parents frequently beat me, but they never screamed at my sister. They never hit me hard enough to leave a mark, and I was too afraid to tell anyone what was going on. Only my Oma Helena knew the whole truth, and other family members recognized that my parents weren't treating me properly. I was an antisocial kid with very few friends, so I couldn't tell anyone at school. Throughout my upbringing, I had to deal with a lot of abuse from my parents and even my sister. Clara may be younger than me, but she certainly did not see me as her elder. She basically learned to treat me brutally from my parents and would slap me frequently. I defended myself once, and I was starved for 2 days. After that, I basically gave up and started being her punching bag, so certainly my parents and sister were never delighted to have me in their lives. This is a condensed version, so you must make do with this backstory. Please don't expect me to tell you everything about the abuse because I don't want to discuss it too much. I'm not here to share my sob story. I just need some advice to determine whether I'm being an idiot. I suppose you understand when I tell that I haven't spoken to my parents or sister since I turned 18. I didn't want to be somewhere I wasn't wanted. They didn't miss me. So, after receiving poor marks in college, I began working a minimum wage job and doing my best to provide for myself. It wasn't easy, and I'm still not financially secure. But I'm doing okay for myself. I even made a buddy or two. Anyway, back to the core issue. After more than a decade of not communicating, my sister invited me to her engagement celebration. I swear I wanted to giggle when I received my invitation. My Oma Helena told me that my sister acquired my address and phone number from her because she wanted me to attend her engagement celebration. I'm still not sure why. Perhaps for looks or something. I wasn't excited about going, but my folks called and asked me to come. They were surprisingly friendly on the phone, so I assumed that showing there wouldn't hurt. Well, I was mistaken. My parents and sister began to ignore me after exchanging pleasantries and presenting me to Clara's fiancé, Luca. I don't know his age. He appeared like a kind guy, and my Oma Helena verified it. I was minding my own thing and preparing to depart early, as my parents and sister had nearly become strangers to me after all these years, but I held back since Luca continued attempting to speak to me. I believe he wanted to get to know me since I was going to be his sister-in-law. I had no idea why, because I assumed he would detest me just as much as my sister did. After all, he was going to be her spouse. He appeared really interested in learning more about me, and he even invited me to lunch the next day with him and my sister. I just gave him a generic reply because I didn't know what to say. I was pretty confident my sister would not want to be around me. Clara observed that Luca and I were speaking. She dragged me onto the grass and started yelling at me to stay away from Luca. Then she went on a rant about how I shouldn't even consider returning to the family because the invitation was only for show. She said some horrible things about me, which I would not repeat here. Her points were that no one loved me, that everyone despised me, that no one wanted me back in the family, and most importantly, that I would always be the unwanted child. I'd always been. None of her rants surprised me because I had heard them all before. The trouble is that Luca overheard the talk when he was outside smoking. I'm not sure what happened next, because I went home after my sister kicked me out of the party. 2 days later, however, my sister and dad began to blow up my phone, accusing me of wrecking Clara's life and breaking off her engagement. According to my understanding, Luca disliked the way Clara handled me. He said nothing at the party, but when they got home, they had a big quarrel. Luca appears to be considering calling off the engagement because he has never seen Clara like this before. I'm not sure what happened, but here's what I concluded from my parents' and sister's violent outbursts at me. They are now trying to force me to speak with Luca and explain that everything was done in good faith. I realize this seems silly, but it is what they want me to do. They want me to lie to Luca and tell him that we all adore each other and are simply squabbling like regular sisters. Honestly, I'm beating myself up for even going to the party. I don't want to lie to anyone or pretend that my sister isn't abusive. I do not want to pretend that I love my sister and she loves me. I chatted with my Oma Helena, and she is solidly on my side. She also suggested that Luca go away because Clara does not deserve such a nice man. I thought I was doing the right thing by ignoring my parents and sister, but they haven't stopped the harassing. I wish it would all go away by itself, but that is unlikely. Their remarks are starting to get to me. I've been thinking about just doing whatever they want so they won't bother me. But then again, I didn't do anything, and am being accused for absolutely no reason. What do you all think I should do? AITA for not lying to someone and pretending to have a loving sister. Edit. Many of you have asked why my parents always treated me this way. Some of you have suggested that I did something to make them detest me. Yes, I did something. I made a mistake by being born. I'm not making this up. My parents always say that having me was a mistake. My parents had only been married a few months when Monica discovered she was pregnant with me. They were young and not prepared to have children. They are strongly pro-life and did not want to get rid of me. I believe my parents continued to indulge and enable my sister's behavior because they felt it was unjust of me to disrupt their picture of a perfect family. At this point, I'm not sure why they believed assaulting their daughter would be the best way to handle this. That is something you should ask Carl and Monica. I wish they had adopted me out or something. It's a joke to call them my family. They detest me because I took away their hopes. They despise me because I didn't let them enjoy a few carefree years before settling down and starting a family. My sister was the intended child, therefore they loved her more and thought she was their ideal daughter. I understand that it is not my fault that I was born, but that logic does not fly with them. They see me as the villain, the terrible youngster who must be punished. Update 1. Guys, I am completely blown away by the replies to my post. I figured I was probably NTA, but the consensus is certainly overwhelming for me. Your words have also made me realize how horrible things have been for me. I'll admit that I have a tendency to shut off and act unconcerned about things. My past, and even my present, are difficult to cope with, so I have a habit of suppressing my emotions and pretending that all of the abuse has had no effect on me. I understand that this is a coping technique I created to deal with childhood trauma. I really can't give in to my emotions anymore because I'm scared of having a mental breakdown and ending up in a hospital ward. I don't really have anyone to rely on, so I can't lose myself in my thoughts. That is one of the main reasons I've avoided thinking about my family in detail. Some of you have written some excellent points regarding how my parents were abusive to the point where CPS should have intervened. I didn't like you guys criticizing my Oma Helena for not bringing me away sooner. She is a frail woman with a variety of health conditions that would make her an unsuitable caregiver for me. So, if she had contacted CPS, I would most likely have been placed in foster care. Yes, she asked around, but no one was available to take me in. I don't blame them. None of us are from wealthy households. My relatives and aunts have their own children and don't have enough money to feed another mouth without jeopardizing their income. I carry no resentment toward them. It was not their obligation to correct Carl and Monica's blunders. They did try to talk to my parents and convince them that what they were doing was wrong. Carl and Monica had threatened to take me away and deny me access to them. I guess that intimidated them enough not to press the issue. They also punished me harshly for involving the family. So I soon stopped telling people that things were horrible at home. I believe I should accept some responsibility for closing down and not communicating with my extended family after a period. Anyway, I realize now that I shouldn't have shut myself down. Regardless of how difficult it was, I should have spoken up and blasted my family to everyone they knew. I accept this and feel prepared to take small moves in the correct path. After hearing all of your advice, I contacted a close friend and showed her the article. Then I poured my heart out to her and, as expected, broke down in her flat. I asked her to help, and she did. She signed me up for therapy and promised to support me as I tackled my issues. I'll be eternally grateful for her help. Carl, Monica, and Clara continue to blow up my phone whenever they can. I've chosen to move in with Sophie for a while since I don't think I can cope alone right now. She has been an angel, assisting me with all I could possibly need. There is one issue that has bothered me a little. Clara's fiancé has been contacting and begging me to meet with him. Clara advised him he should hear the truth from me since he was overreacting to everything. My sister and parents are persuaded that I will do whatever they want and make up stories about how Clara's treatment of me is simply sisterly love. Honestly, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about Luca. I'm not sure if I should just block him and move on, or meet him and give him the real truth. Mentally I'm still a mess, therefore I don't trust my judgment right now. Perhaps you can help me with this one. Update 2. I heard you loud and clear. I got it. I need to talk to Luca. He needs to know what kind of lady he will marry. There is always the risk that what happened to my parents will happen to them. I am almost certain that Clara will end up abusing their child, just as my parents did, because it is all normal and justified in her perspective. There's also the fact that Luca is a nice guy who doesn't deserve to be with a frigid witch like my sister. I carefully considered my options and concluded that it would be better to meet with Luca and tell him everything. I want to do it before I go to the therapist because I'm very sure I won't be mentally stable after telling him everything. At least for the time being, I can seem to be unconcerned and express the truth without bursting into tears. I've already texted Luca and scheduled a meeting with him. I've also saved all of the texts my sister and parents sent me so I can show Luca. I don't think he'd refuse to trust my tale, but it's always good to have some backup evidence. We will meet tomorrow, as he has requested, and I will be accompanied by Sophie. She will sit far away and only intervene or become engaged if I have a meltdown or anything. I'm dreading the meeting since talking about the past is starting to get to me. I'm constantly weary and have to take time off work to deal with everything. Fortunately, my manager is really pleasant and does not go about canceling leaves for fun. No, he does not know the entire story and I prefer it that way. Telling a friend and a group of strangers nearly sent me into a tailspin. I don't want my coworkers to know about my sad life. So for the time being, they will remain in the dark. As for Luca, I hope I have the strength to tell him the entire thing so he can avoid marrying my demon sister. Update 3. I met up with Luca last night. It was not a quiet, tranquil or collected talk. I anticipated to go insane, but not to this extent. It's unpleasant to let go of pent-up rage and frustration. It becomes unsightly and dirty. That's exactly what happened during yesterday's meeting. When I went to speak with Luca, I noticed immediately away that he looked terrible. I may not know him well, but I've been the man before. He appeared absolutely broken and untidy. We attempted to make small talk, but the elephant in the room needed to be addressed. He just asked me to tell him about my relationship with my sister and our family. I did exactly that. I told him everything. I attempted to keep a straight face while I gave him the entire story of my life up to that point. Clara and my dad had not ceased contacting and tormenting me. I showed him all of the texts and allowed him go through my conversations with them. It took us both around 3 hours to recover. He was crying, so was I, and Sophie was trying to keep us from passing out or whatever. I'm so glad I took her with me. Sophie could tell I was about to have a meltdown. She intervened and calmed me down, preventing me from losing my sanity. Luca was also concerned about me and kept reminding me that I didn't have to feel obligated to tell him everything. But I do not know, fellas. It was good to get everything out. Perhaps it prepared me a little for what I would encounter in therapy. Besides, I had to tell Luca everything so he could make his own judgments. It was a very difficult conversation. Luca informed me that he had no idea how horrible things were. Clara constantly told him that I wasn't available because I was too busy with work and other commitments. He had no cause to suspect anything. Carl and Monica had been really nice to him, so he had no doubts that they were excellent people. That was it till the engagement celebration. Luca admitted that it was pure luck that he overheard our chat, but he is glad he did. Ever since that day, he had been wondering if the woman he had fallen in love with was real. He actually asked Clara for some space, but she reacted angrily. Clara kept telling him he was exaggerating and that sisters are always cruel to each other. Fortunately, Luca did not buy any of it. He is a single child. Yet he has other female cousins who also have sisters. He has never seen anyone be so disrespectful to their sister before. Unlike Clara, he has empathy and the emotional capacity to discriminate between right and wrong. Luca has worked hard to get Clara to tell him the entire tale. When she kept gaslighting him, Luca decided to phone my parents and attempt to figure out what was happening. Carl and Monica, of course, stated the same thing as Clara, and even tried to convince Luca that I must have done something terrible to Clara to cause trouble. My adoring parents portrayed me as a selfish, miserable, drama-loving person who spoils everything because I am envious of my sister. Luca still didn't believe them. When he phoned my Oma Helena, she told him the truth. He was outraged and promptly informed Clara that the wedding was off. She raged, cried, and became hysterical. She kept telling him he was exaggerating, and Oma Helena was lying because I was her golden grandchild. Luca was perplexed and overwhelmed by everything, and he had no idea what to do. Then Clara naively gave him my phone number and ordered him to call me to explain everything. Clara of course expected me to say what she wanted him to hear, so she urged him to contact me. She had no idea I'd say no to her and my parents' requests. I didn't bother clarifying her misconceptions after a few responses on my end. I had previously written this piece and understood what I needed to do. I didn't tell Luca about the post, but I did tell him everything else that was going on. Sophie filled in the blanks when I couldn't talk anymore. At the end of the meeting, both Luca and I were too emotionally exhausted to discuss what would come next. After I returned home, Luca texted me to say he was leaving my sister for good. Calling off the engagement was not enough. He didn't want anything to do with a woman who was terrible on the inside. I haven't received any angry texts from Clara or my parents, so I'm thinking he hasn't followed through on his plan yet. For the time being, I'm going to keep quiet and focus on regaining control of my feelings. I know things are going to turn bad in the next several days, so I need to brace myself. I may not be able to provide an update as quickly as I would want. And I hope you understand. Update 4. Hello there. I am still alive and passing myself off as a productive adult. I'm sorry I couldn't return sooner for an update. As you can see, a lot has happened since my previous post. I knew I'd need time to provide an update, but I didn't realize it would take 3 months. Today has been one of my better days, so I thought I'd come here and provide an update. I greatly appreciate all of your comments on my post. They warmed my heart and kept me going even throughout the darkest times of my life. I suppose you'd be pleased to hear that things are finally looking up for me, but good things come at a high cost. When I last updated, Luca had not spoken with my sister about ending their relationship. He accomplished it only 3 days later. He wanted to move his key belongings to a safe location before ending the relationship. He was making arrangements because he was concerned that my sister might become violent and aggressive, among other things. He was totally correct, and thank God he got to a secure spot before breaking up with Clara. Luca had moved to a friend's home with his crucial documents and belongings. He then called my sister and informed her that it was over. She didn't take it well. First, she cried and begged Luca not to abandon her. Then she informed him that she would do anything to win him back, even starting to treat me better, if it meant keeping him. Clara went insane because Luca refused to listen to her cries for reconciliation. I'm not exaggerating here. Clara literally went berserk. She sent him recordings of herself trashing the house and ruining anything Luca couldn't transport to his friend's residence. Then she started showing up at his friends' places looking for him. She even threatened them when they informed her that Luca was not with them. Clara went to his parents' house and caused such a mess that the cops had to be called. She got off without being warned, but she didn't take it seriously. Clara then showed up at his workplace, but security refused to let her in. What did she do then? She waited and followed him to his friend's home. Things became heated there, so the friend had to interfere and call the cops on Clara. She escaped before they could apprehend her. Then she had the nerve to show up at my workplace and attempt to run me over with her car as I was wrapping up my shift at the restaurant. This is my second job, so she knew I'd be working the evening shift. Thank goodness I recognized her automobile and was able to get away without being crushed. I had to go to the hospital for a fractured arm after falling while trying to move out of the path. Don't worry, it wasn't something serious, by God's grace. That mad woman could have killed me. I don't want to go into detail about what happened next because I was simply not in a good mood. Things transpired, cops got involved, and charges were filed. Sophie did the majority of the heavy lifting, as did Luca, who came to help me while I rested. My relatives, uncles and Oma Helena all rallied around me. After a long period, I felt as if I had finally received the love and attention I had longed for. It did not originate from Carl or Monica, but from my extended family. My parents blamed me for everything. They wrote me some nasty texts saying that it was all my fault and that I deserved to die because I sent Clara to jail. Again, I don't want to go into depth since I'll be triggered again. The issue hasn't been totally resolved, but it appears that my sister will spend some time in jail and give me compensation. I'm pretty sure that will come out of Carl and Monica's pockets because Clara practically has nothing to her name. My extended family all much cut them off, and my Oma Helena disowned them forever. Carl and Monica attempted to sue me for this, but fortunately, I had restraining orders in place by then. Things were pretty bad for me for the first 2 months because coping with everything was exhausting. I went to therapy and am still seeing a psychiatrist about my trauma, but don't worry too much about me, I'm actually doing much better now. Yes, there are days when I feel absolutely hopeless and miserable, but I'm learning to cope in a healthy way. I have to add that my roommate has been my rock throughout this. Also, credit where it is due. Luca has been really helpful and supportive right now. He has his own restraining order against Clara, so he doesn't have to worry about that. He also has a good support system, which is beneficial to him. So, yeah, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but I escaped with minor injuries. I shall be eternally grateful for that. I've been thinking of moving away, but I really don't want to be apart from my Oma Helena, who isn't in great condition right now. All of this has had a negative impact on her health. That concludes my update to you. I will not be posting any more updates because I am hopeful that things will calm down from here on out. I'm doing my best to move on, so I needed to offer one final thank you to everyone who helped make this possible. I have taken all of your advice and will carry it with me for the rest of my life. My family called my son's birthday just a kid's party. But when I refused to pay for a sweet 16, they sent police to my door, and I cut them off. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm 34, and a single father. I fix networks for a living and create lists for pleasure. I know where every dollar goes. I can tell you the price of a gallon of milk in 3 stores, one of which restocks the 12-pack of juice boxes every Tuesday. My 11-year-old son Maxime adores Lego, despises olives, and believes I am a wizard since I can untangle cords without swearing. I reside in a little rental property with a bare backyard and a barbecue that I rescued from the street. My family lives 20 minutes away, so I always assumed we were close. It did not mean that. Maxime's birthday Saturday began simply. Blue streamers, a Costco sheet cake with Maxime Level 10 printed in pixel font. I'd hired an inflatable soccer goal and set up folding seats borrowed from a neighbor. 6 of his classmates arrived. Our street smelled of sunblock and charcoal. I kept checking my phone. Marianne had replied, "We'll be there." Wouldn't miss it. My sister Sophie, of course. Aunt Elise is delivering party treats. My brother Julian will come by after the gym. I lined up small water bottles on the porch rail and fastened a trash bag to the fence to make the yard look less like a dump. Every 20 minutes I would check the family chat. Nothing. When the pizza arrived, I asked the driver, "Could you wait a second?" I figured a line of cars would form and I'd need to add another huge pepperoni. He glanced over my shoulder at the little gathering and said, "You're good." 2 slipped into 3. The sun moved. The kids kicked off their sneakers and took turns with the goal. The neighbor across the street brought over an additional cooler. She said, "Full house." I smiled like if my face were made of wood. At 3:11 p.m., my phone vibrated. "Don't be so dramatic," my mother wrote. "It's just a kid's party." Just a kid's party. I read it twice since my brain dismissed it the first time. Not running late. Not getting stuck. Not happy birthday, baby. Just that line like a slap. I stood next to a bowl of orange slices, and the words crept under my skin and sat there. Maxime rushed over, cheeks flushed, hair clinging to his forehead. "Dad, can we cut the cake? Can we sing?" Of course I asked. We sang, "Gather Everybody." He blew out the candles in one breath because he had practiced. He smiled at me, frosting on his lips, and I clapped like a seal. Then I went inside the kitchen to rinse the knife and breathe where no one could see me. The screen door squeaked. Behind me the group chat bubble appeared again, with dots blinking like a heartbeat. Sophie sent a new message. "We will catch the next one. Today is insane." Then a photo posted to her story appeared on my lock screen. Brunch mimosas. A caption. "Self-care Sunday on a Saturday with my friends." My mother was in the corner of the image, wearing sunglasses and holding a flute of champagne. Julian's arm, with the tattoo I helped pay for, was wrapped around their chairs. I stood there with a wet knife in my hand, a cake behind me, and a 10-year-old in the yard who still thought people meant what they said. The place smelled of sugar and dish soap. Someone outside cried, "Goal!" and a cheer erupted. I set down the knife and cleaned my hands on a towel. I walked back to the yard and passed out plates. I didn't say anything about the vacant chairs. Not one. When the last child went, Maxime and I sat in silence and built the spaceship he had unwrapped. He did not inquire about Grandma, Aunt Elise, or Uncle Julian. Perhaps he did not want to. Perhaps he already knew. My phone rang again at 8:04 p.m., after he had fallen asleep on the couch, holding a slice of pizza like a miniature monarch. "Mom!" This time with a sharper, more reckless voice message. "Don't make a big deal, Daniel. He's 10. He'll barely remember." As I stared at the ceiling, something inside me went cold and flat. A new shape was edged. I did not write back. I began counting the chairs to return and cans to recycle. I scraped frosting into the trash. I placed the banner in a shoebox with the remaining candles. I placed everything where it belonged. That is what I do. And then I placed my phone face down on the counter, because if I read one more sentence from them, I would say something I couldn't take back into the box. I've always been the fixer, the person who knew both the Wi-Fi password and the tax deadline, someone who remembers everyone's favorite side dish. I was 21 when Philippe left. Marianne said to me in the driveway, "You're the man now." It was not a pep talk, it was a job assignment. When Sophie opened her last studio, I created the website and paid for the first 6 months of hosting. "You'll get it back when I'm profitable," she told me. Profit was as light as a breeze. When Julian was 25, he received a DUI, and I took a day off work to sit with him in court. I was the one who drove Marianne to urgent care that winter. She had the sick and refused to stop attempting to cook nevertheless. I was the one who used Venmo to pay Julian's rent, only this once. 3 distinct only this once months. It always came with a chorus. Marianne. Family helps family. Sophie, you are doing extremely well, to herself in the mirror. Can you spot me till our Friday? Julian, you know I'll pay you back. He never did. He would, however, purchase new rims, ensuring that the untruth had adequate traction. I made a vow to myself and Maxime on the day he was born. He would never sit in a plastic chair at a gathering, wondering if his friends cared. He would eat cake even when money was tight. When others made mistakes, he would send them apologies texts. He'd have adults who tried. Money was tight a lot. Childcare is considered a second rent. Health insurance is ranked third. I still managed to make it work. Side gigs develop with time. Selling my old guitar to pay for the dentist. When he outgrew his cleats mid-season, I purchased a pair at a thrift store and scrubbed them with a toothbrush until they sparkled. Meanwhile, my family's group chat resembled a vacation blog. Wine tastings and silent retreats that were surprisingly popular on Instagram. Sophie's gentle life period. Julian's grind set. He shot more pictures than he drove in his leased truck. When I asked Marianne once if she wanted to join us for a weekly meal, she answered, "Sweetie, my calendar is full." Next month. Next month never came, but my phone did light up on payday. Small green bubbles. Quick favor, emergency. Do not tell anyone I requested. Sophie called me at 11 p.m. last fall after booking a girls' trip to Tulum, the night before. My airline card was declined. Can you fix it? I'll pay you back Monday. Monday came and went. When I said it, she sighed. Don't be petty, Daniel. Money comes and goes, but memories last forever. In December, Marianne gave me a spreadsheet that read like a ransom note. Plan your holiday gifts. Names, items, price columns, and color coding appear in bold on the right. We should divide equally. Equal meant me, because neither of them had offered. I purchased Maxime a winter suit and a book. I purchased Marianne the mixer she had been raving about since the spring. I gave Sophie a gift card to a supplies store. Julian received new trainers. My present was their quiet at dinner when I asked if someone could bring dessert the next time. It added up. And not just in my bank app. It built up in my chest. The arithmetic of being responsible is that you become their plan, and they don't even realize it. I awoke 2 days after Maxime's celebration to find a fresh message in the family chat. Marianne used all caps, exclamation marks, and glitter emojis. Very important. RSVP by Wednesday. My niece's sweet 16. $3,100 per person. Please Venmo me. Number. Good morning. Number. How was the party? The world's most insane wedding tier price tag was put on a teenager's birthday with the haste of a fire drill attached. A PDF contains a photograph of my cousin wearing a tiara, a ballroom with orchids flowing from the ceiling. The menu reads like a cruise liner brochure: caviar bar, ice sculpture, interactive gelato artist. I stared at the number as if it will transform into anything logical. $3,100 per person. Marianne then says this line. We'll also need Daniel to cover for grandma. She is on a fixed income. There it was. The assumption is like a reflex. My name is Wallet. There's no mention of Maxime. No, I apologize. We missed him. Not even a meme. Just an invoice that I never agreed to. Sophie responded 5 minutes later. We are all in. OFC. Elise refuses to settle for anything less than premium. Also, can we make a collective gift? Daniel, are you able to coordinate? You are a spreadsheet person. Julian, do they have an open bar? If so, it's completely worthwhile. Daniel, you've got me and Clara covered, right? I sat down with my coffee and felt it burn anyway. I typed no, and then deleted it. Not because I didn't mean it, but because I had to be cautious. Words skim across the surface with them. They don't sink unless they're tied to something heavy. I clicked on the PDF again and noticed the sponsor page at the end. My whole name was written in tasteful calligraphy under gold patrons in honor of my family members. I hadn't donated a single dollar. I had not been asked. Sophie had submitted it. I recognized the photograph she used. It was stolen from my LinkedIn. My stomach rolled slowly and stubbornly. I read back through Saturday's texts to see if I had missed anything. Perhaps there was a "so sorry" hidden beneath a meme. There wasn't. Just Sophie's brunch photo and Marianne's voice note. The one when she claimed it was merely a kid's party. Another text flashed up. Marianne. I also talked to the venue. They need the deposit by Friday. I promised them you'd handle it because you are the most organized. The deposit for a teenager's party was more expensive than my automobile, assigned to me as an errand. I picked up my phone to call her and then set it down. I didn't trust my voice to sound soft enough to be heard. That evening when Maxime was doing homework at the table and kicking his feet, I printed the sponsor page and placed it next to my shopping list. 2 columns, one for what I do and one for what they ask. I began writing. Soccer fees are my. The court filing fee for Julian's license reinstatement was mine. I am the one that hosts the website. Costco cake is mine. $3,100 per person is theirs. Deposit is theirs. It's just a kid's party for them. I examined the paper until the ink felt dry enough to pick up. Marianne followed up the next morning. Daniel, you are quiet. Do not be difficult. Your cousin only turned 16 once. Everything inside me that had melted a little for years began to cool and solidify. Not angry like fire. Anger is like ice. Clear, solid, and decided. There is usually a tiny moment preceding the big one. For me, it was grabbing my key ring and seeing that my house key was still the original brass one. Marianne owned a copy. Sophie borrowed it last month for an errand but never returned it. I glanced at the key and understood my boundaries were also composed of soft metal. That afternoon I visited the hardware store. It occurred in the family conversation because it is where they live. I waited until a period when they tend to pile on. Late lunch, when everyone submits images and comments simultaneously. 1:17 p.m. The bubbles appear all at once. Sophie. An iced coffee boomerang. Julian's gym mirror selfie. Marianne. A glittery forwarded prayer. I snapped a photo of the backyard on Saturday. The flag is still affixed on the fence. The empty folding chairs were arranged in a tidy row, as if for a lecture. Nobody came to the cake box with the missing corner from when we chopped it down and wrapped the slices in foil for the freezer. I wrote that this was Maxime's celebration. You said you would arrive. I let it sit. The responses came in just as I expected. Sophie, why are you airing stuff here? Text me. Marianne, please do not guilt us. Daniel, we have lives. You are aware of how difficult Saturdays are. Julian, don't become a martyr. Children don't care. I shared a screenshot from 2 weeks ago. Marianne. We will be there. Then another Sophie. Aunt Elise is delivering party favors. Then there's the brunch photo with their faces in the corner and the caption, which includes my people. There is no commentary, just pictures. Facts have their own gravity. Silence. Then Marianne appeared again. Enough. We're currently focusing on the Sweet 16. I sent a link. The deposit is due Friday. Be an adult. I felt my pulse in my cheekbones. I typed slowly. I am an adult. I am Maxime's father. Another pause. Sophie responded with the written equivalent of a hair flick. Do not make everything about your child. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I wrote. You did not attend your own nephew-grandson's birthday. A week later, you gave me a bill for $3,100 per person for a teen I see twice a year. You inserted my name as a sponsor without asking, you promised a venue I'd pay a deposit, and you stated I was difficult when I didn't respond quickly enough. Here's my response. No. I pushed submit. Before they could swarm, I opened Venmo, found Marianne, and transferred $1. The note reads, congratulations, that was it. There's no paragraph. $1. One sentence. A mirror held up to the ridiculous. I then replaced the locks. The hardware store employee had already cut the keys. It took 10 minutes. The deadbolt turned smooth for the first time in years. When the new knob snapped shut, I felt a slight click in my chest, like if a safe door had closed on something essential. I looked through my phone, blocking numbers. Not forever. Not out of cruelty. But because I knew what was going to happen. The flood. How dare you? And after everything we've done, and you're pulling the family apart. I needed silence to hold the line. So I held it. At supper, Maxime requested extra broccoli and told me a joke about a banana in a library. He had no idea his father had just flipped a switch that would change our lives. Perhaps he did not need to know yet. He needed a father who did not flinch. By 8 p.m., the messages were bouncing off the wall I had created. The final one landed before the block. Marianne. You're going to regret this, never forget who raised you. I put my phone face down and took out the garbage. Sophie uploaded a tale the next day, along with a glitter countdown sticker for her Sweet 16. 10 days. Gold patrons, we see you. My name shone beneath it. The reactions were overwhelmingly positive. So generous. Family goals. I navigated to the venue page and issued an official email requesting that my name be removed from all materials immediately. I did not authorize sponsorship. I've included screenshot receipts. I copied a person with the manager's signature. Then I sent Marianne and Sophie the identical email from a fresh address they didn't know, hoping they'd read it through corporate fear. I slept soundly for the first time in a long time. The type of slumber that does not listen for footsteps. 2 days later, at 7:42 a.m., a knock on the door. Not casual, but firm. I peeked through the peephole and seen 2 officers. Morning. We're responding to a call. The taller cop seems to have seen a lot of silly domestic storms. What kind of call? I asked, maintaining a level tone. Maxime was still in his jammies, watching a cartoon with half an eye and half an ear to the door. Family member reported concerns. Said you were making threats. Said you had their property. Asked for a welfare check for a minor at this address. There it was. 3 birds. 1 stone. Paint me as unstable. Accuse me of thievery. And weaponize compassion for my own child. Efficient. Come in, I said, opening the door enough to reveal a spotless living room with a child on the couch and a bowl of cereal. We're fine. The officer stepped inside and performed a nice scan to avoid appearing to be scanning. The shorter one nodded to Maxime. Hey buddy. Maxime waved his spoon. Hi. Can we talk in the kitchen? I inquired. We moved a few feet. I kept the doorway in my peripheral view. Years of being the responsible one cause you to host even when being inspected. This is about my mother and my sister, I informed them. They didn't come to my son's birthday. They asked me to pay thousands for a cousin's party. I said no. I changed my locks. They don't like that word. The taller one hid a flutter of a smile. That tracks. They also put my name as a sponsor for the event without consent. I emailed the venue to remove it. I have screenshots. I slipped my phone over the counter, folder open. Photos, chats. A Venmo dollar with a congratulations message, the venue email and the sponsor page. The officer scrolled. When you live inside receipts, your evidence adds up nicely. Any weapons in the house? He inquired, feeling compelled to do so. Only butter knives, I said. And these Lego swords. He smirked. Any court orders? Custody stuff? No, Maxime's with me. His mom isn't in the picture, we're okay. He cast a glance toward the living room. You're okay, buddy? Maxime offered a sober thumbs up. Property? The shorter one inquired, looking over his notes. I blinked. What property? He read. Caller stated he was holding a family heirloom necklace and wouldn't return it. His brow furrowed, and I saw it land for him as well. The folly of it. The only necklaces in this house are made of macaroni, I informed you. If she means the spare house key, I changed the locks yesterday. I can give you the old one if that makes this cleaner. We all stared at the key on the counter as if it were a prop in a poor play. The officers walked to the side, exchanged glances, and then returned their attention to me. Here's the deal, the taller one explained. We've seen this a lot. Family gets used to a thing, money, access, free labor. Someone changes the terms, panic, they call us. We make sure nobody's in danger. Then we go write a report that says no danger. That would be fantastic, I murmured, feeling my shoulders relax an inch. Do you want to log anything on your side? The shorter one inquired. Yes. I opened the email from the venue and my formal request to have my name removed. I also want something on record that they put my name down for a financial commitment without my consent and that I've asked them in writing to stop. Good, he said. Paper trails help. Keep saving everything. If anyone shows up here and won't leave, call us. Don't engage. They left me a card and walked out into the sunlight. I stood at the entrance, feeling the way you do when the flu breaks out. Weak, but obvious at the same time. 10 minutes later, my fresh email arrived. The venue's management responded, "We have removed your name from all printed and digital materials. We apologize for this oversight." I sighed, one thread cut cleanly. At noon, my aunt Marianne's older sister texted from an unknown number. I overheard what happened. I apologize. They are furious. Sophie is wailing over a wrecked vision. Your mother calls you ungrateful because she cannot call you anything worse. For what it's worth, I believe you did the correct thing. I didn't do anything, only type. I stopped doing stuff. She used a sad grin emoji. This is the only time I have liked one. The following 48 hours were spent observing how a system tries to reboot. Sophie shared a lengthy caption on toxic energy and people who are unable to be happy for others. She did not use my name. She did not need to. Her pals packed in with hearts, and you are the queen. The comments smelled of hairspray and denial. Julian texted from a new number. Jesus is a guy. Marianne is crying. Can you just pay the deposit and we'll settle later? We are family. I blocked it. Marianne left a voicemail on the telephone that I never used. This is your mom. You are not well. This is not something that the family does. You have embarrassed us. You have embarrassed me. She breathed hard. What about the police? Really? Her voice shook when she was angry yet wanted to sound hurt. I held the phone away from my ear, as if it were scorching. Then came the opposite side. Quiet texts from cousins I rarely spoke to. I saw the price. Are they serious? I am sad about Maxime. That was terrible. If you need more chairs next year, we'll bring them. And the neighbor who had loaned me the cooler arrived with a Tupperware of brownies. You fought the right fight, she replied. Like if we were comrades. Perhaps we were. That week my house became lighter. The air, not the furnishings, changed. There will be no waiting for a key to turn in the lock that I did not invite. There was no jump when the phone buzzed. Even the refrigerator sounded different, as if it had room to hum. Maxime observed the silence in his own way. Are we mad at Grandma? He inquired. I switched off the sink and dried my hands. We're not mad, I explained cautiously. We're disappointed. And we're taking a break. Like, time out. Kind of. Except this is for grown-ups who forgot how to be kind. He nodded as if it made sense. Kids understand it faster than adults. Marianne tried a different technique 2 days before the Sweet 16. The olive branch is constructed of lead. She sent a mass text message titled, Apology. It was not an apology. This was a press release. Family is complicated, she wrote. Sometimes schedules collide. We adore Maxime. We'll make things up to him. The Sweet 16 is significant because of commercial relationships. This is an investment. Please provide support. Also, Daniel has been stressed, so don't push him. Thank you. Investments. Business relationships. My child is an afterthought to a phony apology. I read it once and then put my phone down. At 5 p.m., The venue contacted my new email address again. "Hi, Mr. Brooks," the manager said quickly. "We received a call from your mother stating you had recommitted to your sponsorship and would be paying the remaining balance. I wanted to verify before proceeding." "She lied." I responded. "Do not put my name anywhere. If she says my name again, send me the recording." A keyboard clack. "Understood." I brought Maxime to the park on the night of her sweet 16. We made free throws till the sky turned orange. His laugh ricocheted off the backboard, and I considered how inexpensive joy is until someone tries to bill it. We stopped for milkshakes on our way home. He arranged his action figures on the coffee table, and I allowed him to watch a late movie. I did not check my phone for a recap of a party I would never attend. I didn't want to see how centerpieces looked when they were purchased with someone else's guilt. Aunt Isabel sent a final text message shortly after 11. They sat Grandma next to a fountain with dry ice and strobe lights. She claimed she could not see her food. Your sister spent half the night ranting at the florist, the DJ, and the wait staff. Everyone glanced at each other for a time after the bill arrived. Nobody made eye contact with your mother. "I'm at home now. I just wanted you to know you didn't miss anything." I placed the phone on the table and watched my son fall asleep, chocolate on his lip. I wiped it away with my thumb and felt something open in my chest other than anger. Space. In the silent week that followed, my life reorganized itself in the same way that a room does after moving a couch and realizing it never belonged there. I told my supervisor that I wouldn't be able to cover extra weekends for a time. He said, "Good. Go be a dad." I posted a sticky note on the fridge announcing the soccer camp scholarship deadline and applied on time. I created a Google Drive named Receipts/Boundaries, and every time thought tried to fight with me, I said, "You're being harsh. You'll be sorry." I slipped another screenshot into the folder, and the thought became silent. On Thursday, I received a card in the mail with kid handwriting. "Hello Maxime, happy birthday. We're sorry we couldn't come. My mother told us we had to go to a separate party. I wanted the cake with pixels. From Emma, a neighbor." There was $3 taped inside. He beamed as if he'd discovered riches. I photographed him holding it and sent it to no one except my own future. Neglected by my family, I left. When my brother was arrested, they begged for help. I demanded an apology, then refused. Do you ever feel like you're just there? Like you exist in a space but no one sees you? That is how it has always been in my family. I wasn't the perfect child. I was not the troublemaker. Just the one in the middle. The one who performed what was required but never quite enough. It started little. Small things. My parents forgot to save me a plate for dinner. My brother took my items without asking, knowing that no one would care if I protested. They never explicitly stated that I wasn't wanted, at least not at first, but it was always there. In the way people spoke around me, my existence seemed like an afterthought. I attempted to brush it off. Families were not perfect, correct? Perhaps I was simply being sensitive. Maybe if I worked more and performed better, they'd finally see me as someone worth keeping. So I worked hard. I made certain that my grades were solid. I helped around the house. I remained out of trouble. However, it never seemed to matter. My brother? He could do whatever he wanted, talk back, skip chores, fail a class, it made no difference. My parents would make excuses for him. He's only a kid. He's going through a difficult moment. You should be more supportive of him. Every time I brought out the disparity in how we were treated, I became the problem. It was difficult. The resentment eventually bubbled over. But it's not from me. From them. It was Saturday night. I'd just come home from work. Nothing extraordinary, simply a part-time job at a neighborhood grocery store. My parents never gave me much money, so I worked on weekends to save some. My brother, on the other hand, did not need to lift a finger. He received everything he wanted. I entered the house, tired. The first thing I saw was him sitting on the couch, controller in hand, deeply immersed in his game. A half-eaten dish of food rested on the table. And my backpack is on the floor. Open. My notebooks and papers were spilled on the carpeting. What the hell, dude? I sighed and bent down to gather up my belongings. Oh yeah, he mumbled, staring at the television. We needed paper. I took some. As I flipped through my notebook, my stomach sank. My notes, which I had spent hours on, were gone. Torn out. I clenched my jaw. Are you serious? He finally looked at me and said, Relax. It's simply some pointless notes. It's not like you do anything important. That landed harder than it should have. Perhaps because deep down, I knew that was how he saw me. How everyone saw me. Where are they? I inquired, my voice tight. He scoffed. Dunno. Probably in the trash. I'm not sure what happened at that moment, but something inside me snapped. Not in a violent, screaming way, but in a cold, calm knowledge. I was not one of them. Not really. I took a deep breath and forced myself to remain calm. You're unbelievable, I mumbled as I walked by him to the kitchen. That's when my folks entered. And that's when things started to go wrong. My mother and father entered, laughing at something, an inside joke between them. Something I never participated in, but as they noticed me standing there, their demeanor changed. What's with this attitude? My father asked, his eyes narrowing. I sighed sharply while still holding my destroyed notebook. Ask him, I said, nodding to my brother. He ripped out my notes. I just threw them away like they were nothing. My mother scarcely glanced at him. It's just paper, she remarked with a dismissive palm. I stared between them, expecting something. Even anything as simple as that wasn't cool or don't do that again. But nothing. Instead, my brother smirked. Yeah, it's just paper, he repeated, as if he knew he had already won. I felt my fingers tightening around the notebook. Right. Of course. I turned to head upstairs, but my father's voice stopped me. You know, this attitude is exactly why no one wants to be around you. I froze. What? I inquired, turning slowly. Dumb, my mother moaned, as if she had grown tired of me. You overreact to everything. Constantly playing the victim. Always creating problems. Is this causing problems? I gave out a sour laugh. For what? Expecting basic respect? Because I don't want my belongings trashed? My brother snorted. God, you're so dramatic. I shake my head. You behave as if I'm the problem, but you don't even notice what's occurring. You just let him do what he wants. Dad folded his arms. Because he's not the one constantly whining. That hit hard. But not as difficult as what happened later. My brother lay back on the couch, arms extended behind his head, smirking. No one wants you here, man. I felt my stomach drop. But my parents' reaction broke something in me. They nodded. They truly nodded. My mom didn't say anything. My father didn't argue. They just stood there silently. As if they had already accepted that fact. I did not yell. I did not beg them to take it back. I just breathed. And something inside of me went cold. Okay, I replied simply. And I went upstairs to pack my stuff. And I left. But this was not the end. Not even close. Because the next morning, my phone was filled with 12 missed calls. And that's when I realized that leaving was the best decision I'd ever made. I did not answer any of the calls. Not at first. I simply gazed at my phone, watching as the notifications piled up. My brother. My dad. Even my mother. For a family that didn't want me, they were frantic to contact me now. I let it ring. I was not in a haste. After leaving last night, I didn't have a plan. I threw my belongings in a duffel bag and walked out, feeling numb. I crashed at a friend's place, someone who genuinely cared about me. He didn't ask any questions. I didn't push. He simply tossed me a blanket and added, "You can stay as long as you need." It was more kindness than my own family had shown me in many years. They wanted something now. And I suspected it wasn't because they missed me. By the time the calls ceased, a few texts began to arrive. The first ones were exactly what I imagined. Mom. You are acting immature. Come back. Dad. Enough with this crap. You should quit acting like a child. I scoffed. Yes, I actually left. They were definitely not apologetic. Then a new message arrived. One event transformed everything. Mom. Come home now. We have an issue. I glanced at the screen, my pulse quickening. Is there a problem? I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I finally texted back. Only 2 words. Me. What happened? Her reply came almost immediately. Mom. Your brother messed up. Bad. And just like that, I knew. They did not miss me. They did not want me back. They needed me. And that gave me an idea. I lay back on the couch and stared at my phone. So they needed me. Interesting. I was not in a hurry to answer. Instead, I allowed them to sweat a little. If my brother had truly messed up, whatever happened was significant enough that my parents, who had never taken my side, were now reaching out. After around 10 minutes of silence, more texts started arriving. Dad. We don't have time for your attitude, just come home. Mom. Please. This is serious, seriously. That almost made me laugh. When my troubles became serious, they advised me to get over them. But now that my brother was in peril, it became crucial. I took my time penning the next response. Me? It's not my problem. A minute has passed. Then another. Then my father called. I let it ring, declined. A second later, a text appeared. Dad. You are being selfish. I breathed sharply through my nose. Selfish? That was impressive coming from him. Then my mother texted again. Mom. Your brother has been arrested. I blinked. Okay, now I am interested. I took my friend's car keys from the countertop. I need a ride. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? Thought you were done with them. I smirked. Oh, I am. But I need to see this for myself. 15 minutes later I pulled up in front of my home. My father was pacing on the porch, phone in hand, and appeared more anxious than I'd ever seen him. My mother sat on the steps, head in her hands. For once, no one laughed, no disparaging remarks, just pure panic. Silence. I took my time walking up. So, I casually inquired. Who wants to tell me what happened? My father turned, his gaze steely. Where the hell have you been? I raised an eyebrow. Not here, like you wanted. He clenched his teeth, but before he could respond, my mother spoke. It's your brother, she explained, her voice cracking. He stole something? From the wrong people? I frowned. The wrong people? Dad ran his fingers over his face. Some guys at that arcade he hangs out at. We don't know the details, but they called the cops. He's in holding right now. I nearly laughed. Of course, my brother had spent years treating me like garbage, believing he was untouchable. And now, the actual world had struck him like a truck. I crossed my arms. And what do you want me to do about it? Mom shot me a frantic look. We need money. For a lawyer. Bail. Something. We need your help. I stared at her for a long time. Then I finally grinned. They needed me. But I didn't need them. After years of shoving me aside and treating me like I was nothing, they now looked at me as if I were their only hope. And in a way, I was. I tucked my hands in my pockets and tilted my head slightly. So let me get this straight, I muttered. You told me I was unwanted. You let my brother treat me like garbage. You didn't care when I walked out. But now that he's in trouble, you suddenly remember I exist? My father's jaw stiffened. This isn't about that. This is about family. I laughed. A brief piercing noise. Oh, now we're family? That's funny. Because last night, I was a burden. Mom's eyes were begging. Please. We can talk about all of that later. Right now, we need to get him out before this gets worse. I let out a slow breath, pretending to think about it. And how much money are we talking about? Dad exhaled. Bail is set at $10,000. We can pay a portion, but we need you to cover the rest. I whistled. 10 grand, huh? Sounds serious. My mother perked up somewhat. So, you'll do it? I smirked. Oh, absolutely not. Their faces sank so quickly that I nearly felt awful. Almost. Excuse me? My father snapped. I shrugged. Not my problem. Mom's voice crackled. But, he's your brother. I shake my head. He's your son. I corrected with a firm voice. And you made it very clear that I was never part of this family. Dad stepped forward, wrath in his eyes. You think you're proving a point? You think this is funny? I met his stare without flinching. No. I smirked. I think it's fair. Mom grabbed my arm, her words urgent. We'll pay you back, I took a step backward. You think I trust you? The people who threw me away without a second thought? Her lips opened and closed, but she said nothing. I shake my head. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to figure this out without me, just like you always wanted. And I'm going to walk away, just like you told me to. I turned on my heels and returned to my friend's car. My father cried after me, Don't you dare walk away from us. I looked over my shoulder. You already did it first. Then I got in my car and drove away, leaving them in the mess they had created. I drove away. My fists gripped around the steering wheel. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt like I finally had the last laugh. But, instead? I felt hollow. Not because I regretted my decision, they deserved it, but because after all, even when they begged for my assistance, I knew they still didn't consider me family. They simply saw me as a solution. A wallet. A safety net. And now, that net was gone. That night, I sat in my room, reading through my phone and eating a beautiful, fatty burger from my favorite takeout restaurant. It was serene. Quiet. I hadn't experienced a night like this in years living under that roof. I considered turning my phone on mute, but I couldn't resist checking my alerts. Surprise, surprise, my family had not given up. Mom sent 3 SMS in a row. Mom. Let's work something out. Please let's speak. Mother. Your brother is still in jail. We're having trouble getting the money together. Mom. Please, I understand we were tough previously, but we're family. I almost choked on my soda. Are we now a family? Did they finally care? That was lavish. I was pondering whether to answer when another text arrived, this time from my father. Dad. See, we can repay you. You simply need to trust us. That one had me laughing out loud. Trust them. The same people who for years treated me as if I were an unwanted guest in my own home? Are these the same people who advised me to leave without hesitation? Yeah. Right. Just as I was about to put my phone down, another message arrived. Brother. Come on, man. Are you really going to let me rot here? Oh, this was really amazing. After everything he's put me through, all the times he's shoved me around, mocked me, and labeled me useless, what now? Now he sought my assistance. I decided to have some fun. Me. You said no one wanted me around. I'm simply respecting your requests. Delivered, read. No response. I smiled at myself, extended my arms behind my head, and ate another piece of my burger. Life was good. The following morning, I awoke to a rush of messages. Groggy, I massaged my eyes, unlocked my phone, and began scrolling through them. Apparently, things were getting tough for the family at home. Dad. We had to sell both the TV and my golf clubs. Your mother is furious at me. I hope you're happy. Dad. Please. We don't know what to do now. And then, the best one yet. Brother. I swear to God, when I leave, you better hope I don't find you. That was hilarious. Was the same guy who needed my help now threatening me? I chose to respond. Me. That is some strong language for someone who requires my assistance. Try again. An hour passed before my mother swallowed her pride and sent another message. Mom. Please, we are definitely struggling. I let her sit in her desperation for a few minutes before responding. Me. I'll bail him out. On one condition. She did not hesitate. Mom. Anything? I smirked. I want a public apology. In the family group chat. A long one. I want you all to admit every horrible thing you've said to me, and I want you to thank me for helping. I knew that would hurt my father's pride. But if they needed my help so desperately, they'd have to beg for it. It did take them a bit. But eventually, a new message appeared in the family group chat. Dad. We need to discuss how we've treated you. We've made mistakes, and we now see how deeply we've wounded him. We profoundly regret our comments and behavior. He is an essential member of our family, and we appreciate his generosity in assisting us during this tough time. It was stiff, it was forced, and it was quite humiliating for them. Perfect. I gave them a simple thumbs up emoji and proceeded about my day. Did I really bail my brother out? Haha. Absolutely not. But at least I received the apologies I had always deserved. Next week, my brother called me. Man, I can't believe you did this to me, he said over the phone, his voice heavy with rage. I thought you were better than this. I couldn't help laughing. It was not a malicious chuckle. It's more like the giggle you get when the universe gives you precisely what you deserve. Better than what? I inquired, my voice light and even humorous. I'm just giving you what you wanted. You told me I wasn't wanted, remember? So now you get to stay exactly where you belong. I could hear him smashing something into the jail bars in the distance. You can't do this? You're really just leaving me here? I paused for a moment before responding. You know, I thought I might bail you out. I really did. But you, and the rest of the family, you've made it pretty clear that I don't matter. I paused to allow the words to sink in. So now? I get to laugh. I get to enjoy my life, knowing that I'm out here living it on my terms while you're stuck. Enjoy your stay. He did not say anything for a while. I could almost see him furious on the other end. But I didn't care. After years of being regarded as an afterthought, like an unseen shadow in the backdrop, this was my moment. When I hung up the phone, a sense of relief washed over me. I wasn't angry anymore. In fact, I couldn't feel the resentment I used to harbor for them. Everything had melted away. Just like that. My brother remained in jail. They did everything to get him out, but the charges were so serious that they couldn't help him. They begged and pleaded, but the reality was, they needed me far more than I needed them. As for me, I walked away. Hold your head high. I knew I'd finally returned my power. I didn't have to move a finger to make their lives miserable. They had already done it for me. All I had to do was relax, enjoy my quiet, and know that they would never see me the same way again. And whenever I looked at my phone, with its continual reminders of how desperate they were, I smiled. Because in the end, it wasn't only about the money, it was about the sweet, fulfilling taste of vengeance. For the first time in years, I was finally living for myself. Honestly, this story is quite satisfying. The protagonist was mistreated by his family, but the way he turned the tables and refused to help his brother was great. It's like the best revenge. And he didn't even need to do anything drastic, just let them face the consequences. What are your thoughts? Was that the correct decision, or did he go too far? Would you have helped? Or is this retribution well deserved? Let me know your thoughts. My husband is blind to his work wife, ruining our marriage. She manipulates him and even calls him her husband right in front of me. Original post, February 9, 2025. I, 31 female, am at my wit's end with my husband's, 32 male coworker Sarah, 30 female, and his complete inability to see what's happening. I'm not usually one for Reddit, but I need to know if I'm going crazy here. Where do I even start? 3 years ago, my husband Mark started working with Sarah. At first, I tried to be welcoming. I invited her to our BBQs, included her in group outings, and genuinely tried to be friendly. Big mistake. She spent the entire time making backhanded comments about everything from my career. Oh, you're just a yoga instructor? How peaceful. To my cooking. I guess not everyone can master basic seasoning. The real problem is that Mark thinks she's just being funny. Last month, she literally threw away the anniversary mug I gave him because it clashed with the office aesthetic. When I got upset, Mark said I was being too sensitive and that Sarah just has high standards for office decor. It was a mug with our wedding photo on it. Some greatest hits from Sarah. She scheduled a mandatory work dinner on our anniversary. She convinced Mark not to take a promotion because it would mean working with a different team. She posts daily photos of them together with hashtags like work power couple and work spouse. She tells everyone at their office that she takes better care of him than I do. She changed his coffee order and now tells everyone she trained him right. The worst part? My husband is completely blind to all of this. Yesterday, he actually told me about how Sarah said our new house, which we spent months searching for, was charming in a starter home kind of way. He repeated this while laughing. I tried talking to him about it, but Sarah has convinced him I'm just insecure. She's managed to insert herself into every aspect of our lives. They text constantly, even on weekends. She knows his schedule better than I do. She rearranged his entire desk and office wardrobe because his style was too suburban husband. That's what he is. Last week, I suggested marriage counseling. He looked genuinely confused. He of course went and talked to Sarah about it. I found out from another coworker that she's been telling people that Mark and I are going through a rough patch, and that she's just being a good friend by giving him someone to talk to. We weren't going through anything until she started this nonsense. The breaking point? I stopped by his office to surprise him with lunch. I know, but it was his birthday and Sarah was supposedly out sick. Guess who was there? Sarah. She'd miraculously recovered, and bought him a cake that said, "To my work hubby," with a photo of them from the office holiday party. She saw me and said, "Oh, Amy. You came too. How nice. Mark, you didn't tell me your real wife was coming. I'm not crazy, right? This woman is trying to destroy my marriage while my husband stands there grinning like it's all some big joke. What should I do? Divorce seems extreme, but I'm running out of options here. TLDR. My husband's work wife is actively trying to sabotage our marriage while he remains completely oblivious to her obvious manipulation. ETA. I should have stated that the promotion wasn't one that would increase his salary but his title. It would give him more leadership experience. It still blows my mind that he turned it down just so he could stay on the same team as her. ETA. I should have told the mug story in its entirety. She accidentally broke the mug. I noticed it was gone when I was visiting him one day and I asked him about it. He said she accidentally knocked it over and then later he repeated a joke she made about how it didn't fit the office aesthetic. Top comments. Comment 1. Sarah would not be able to sabotage your marriage if your husband wasn't allowing it. Comment 2. You have a husband problem. Go to counseling and get professional help to communicate your concerns. Remind him that he's married to you, not Sarah, so her opinions shouldn't matter when it comes to your marriage. Good luck, but be prepared for the worst. Comment 3. Yeah, this guy isn't oblivious, he's complicit. He knows what's happening, and he likes the attention. He is happy to let his girlfriend disrespect his wife. Update. February 13, 2025, 4 days later. Hi, I, 31 female, posted a few days ago. I really didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did. I got so overwhelmed by all the comments that I haven't responded to any. I want to address everyone who says it's fake. I understand why you think that, but this is my personal hell. I only listen to Reddit stories on TikTok, but when this reached its boiling point, I just needed a place to talk. So I made an account and tried to yell into the void. Well, the void turned out to be less empty than I thought. Now, to why everyone is here. The update. Before I talked to my husband, 32 male, I decided to do some investigation. I started with his phone and read all the messages between him and Sarah. She badmouthed me a few times, he did nothing to defend me but didn't engage either. She was flirty. He wasn't really flirty back. They talked a lot, and he praised her frequently for her work ethic and intelligence. I didn't see anything about cheating. I checked his email, nothing. I checked his work email, nothing. I looked through our other devices, nothing. I searched high and low for a second phone, nothing. Everything I found was always dancing that line. Nothing was outright cheating, but here are the things I found that did hurt my feelings. He has lunch with her, and only her, every day in the office. They don't really like anyone else, so they'll criticize others and say, let's talk more at lunch, they're serving XYZ today. He'd say things like, I'm sure if you were a wife, you would XYZ. He always kept it as a wife, and not my wife, but it still upset me. She admitted to breaking the mug on purpose. He didn't get upset with her, just said, yeah, the photo gifs are kind of corny. I confronted him. I laid it all out, and while he wasn't upset, he did try to brush things off. He said I was being sensitive and overreacting. I told him if we didn't have a real conversation about this, I would file for divorce. That got his attention, and he sat down with me. He admitted that at first, he found it odd that Sarah was trying so hard. He saw her trying hard with all the men in the office. The more attention she gave him, the more he enjoyed it, and the more he responded, the more attention she gave, until she just had her sights on him. He knew some of the other men were envious, and he liked that too. He admitted that eventually, he just got too deep. He said he knew it was wrong but had gotten addicted to the attention and didn't want her to move on to another man. So he indulged her sometimes at my expense. He said it was just nice to have two women in the two major parts of his life, stating that he knew we'd rarely see one another, so what was the harm? He reiterated that he never ever physically cheated with her but admitted it could be called an emotional affair. It was painful, I won't hide that. I mean really painful, like I wasn't enough. I told him from this point on, he needed to stop communicating with Sarah and ask to be transferred or switch jobs altogether. Now folks, I mean it when I tell you this. He lost his shit. He began raising his voice, saying things like he never cheated, it was all above board, and I couldn't control who he talked with at work. He called me a narcissist and a control freak. He told me I had no idea how hard it was, how much stress he had in the office, and that his personal relationship with Sarah helps a lot. Taking it away would just damage his mental health. It got so bad that I started crying. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to leave. I packed a small bag and called my MIL, she's the only family I have here. I gave her a rundown of what was going on, and she offered her home to me. I'm staying here and just hoping my husband calms down so we can revisit this. I want to work it out. I love him more than anything. I will try harder to answer comments on this post, and I will definitely update if something new happens. This has been really therapeutic and makes me feel less alone. TLDR. I confronted my husband about his work wife, and he lost it on me. Now I'm staying with my mother-in-law. Top comments. Comment 1, welp, I kind of figured he wasn't that clueless. This is a full-blown emotional affair. From experience, things will only escalate when they are in bed together. Protect your peace, because he sure doesn't give a damn about your feelings. Stay strong. Comment 2. Jumped right from admitted it could be called an emotional affair, to, he began raising his voice, saying things like he never cheated. OP made a valiant effort, but it doesn't seem like this marriage can be saved. Additional comments from OOP about her Mael. My mill is on my side and told me point blank that he is wrong. However, she said she doesn't want to get in the middle because she doesn't want to damage the relationship with either one of us. She told me I'm welcome as long as I need, but she won't bring anything up to her son until he brings it up to her. My MIL agrees his actions are wrong but doesn't want things to escalate or to damage her relationship with either one of us, so she is staying out of it unless he contacts her. As for my husband, he has tried to reach out. He's called, left message, texted. I let him know I was safe and left it at that. He will message or call every few hours, but we haven't talked. New update. Update 2, February 14, 2025, one day from previous update. Well, I'm back. First, I want to address some of the negative comments. To all the people saying they're Team Sarah, and hoping Sarah and my husband get together, I even saw a nasty comment saying Sarah and my husband would be the office power couple. How can you sit here and say nothing's going on? You claim my husband didn't cheat and I'm being crazy, yet in the same breath wish they would get together? You're contradicting yourself because deep down you know something romantic was developing. Now for the update. My husband came to my mother-in-law's house. She didn't call him. He knew I was there because I told him, and he said he wanted to talk. Some big things happened in such a short time. He wanted to explain. According to my husband, after I left, he started to reflect. He did call his mom and they had a long talk. I didn't know any of this. She asked him if he was happy with me and he said yes, but I made him extremely happy. I was a good wife and a great partner. This is kind of what sunk into him, that he was being juvenile for wanting attention from another woman. I did ask him why he always brushed things off and never took action before. He said he couldn't explain it, it just felt good. He assured me he never wanted to sleep with her and never advance things that way. It was just nice having someone around who was fawning over him, like a fan. For those who said he didn't know what an emotional affair was and was just agreeing with me, you were right. He admitted he didn't really understand what an emotional affair was, but after looking it up, he agreed that's what it was, though unintentional. He said he didn't want to lose his friend, so he just went along with a lot of what she did. He admitted he was deep into a fog, but me leaving and this conversation with his mom was the one thing that brought him out of it. He said he didn't want to fight. My husband is big on giving me my space, so when I left he didn't chase after me because he thought it would be best for us to just cool down and think about this and hopefully come back and discuss it more rationally. He did reach out to Sarah. Though they didn't meet in person, they had a phone call. He told her they couldn't remain as close, that their out-of-office texts and calls needed to stop, that he would get a replacement mug she wasn't to touch, and that they needed to cut back on their lunches. He wanted to handle this before talking to me, to show he was serious. Sarah didn't take it well. She started berating me, saying I was forcing him to do this. My husband stopped her and said no. He was doing this because his marriage was important. He admitted letting things go too far but clarified he had no romantic interest in her. He told her if she had feelings for him, she needed to distance herself immediately. Sarah ended up ruining their friendship herself. Though my husband was willing to maintain a more distant friendship, her comments about me and him, claiming she'd never want him and that everything she did was because she knew we weren't meant to be together, and she was trying to open his eyes. He said he couldn't believe he'd never seen how vindictive and awful she was almost venomous. It didn't end well. After handling that situation, he came to see me, wanting to ensure I knew he understood and was taking the proper steps. He said we could do whatever I needed. I know some of you will say I'm wrong, that divorce is the only option because he had an emotional affair. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not divorcing my husband. I told him we needed counseling for both of us. Yes, going through all his devices, emails, and texts might have been extreme. He agreed it felt like a breach of privacy but understood given the circumstances. I told him we both needed to work on things. As of right now, I guess you could say that we're separated. We're not staying in the same house. We're going to attend counseling. I don't want to just jump back into things with him. I don't want it to seem like it was okay to make me feel like I was the second option, to ignore all those red flags and to brush me off. This has to be worked on. I'm leaving his mother's house and staying with a friend. I'm not sure if anyone's going to want an update after this. Sorry it's so anticlimactic. Sorry it's typical. Oh, you just got back together. I mean it is, but it isn't. I love my husband. I know he loves me. I don't think everything is an end-all be-all. Yes, it's a terrible situation. Yes, he did a terrible thing, but I want my marriage to last, so we're giving it another go. I genuinely hope this is my last update, but if it's not, y'all will know. Thank you for all the messages. All the support for everything really has been a huge help. Top comments. Comment 1. Honestly, this was the update I was hoping for. I'm happy he recognized it and that you two are working for your marriage. All the best, and I hope your marriage is stronger after this episode. Comment 2. Glad to hear that the fog is lifting. I hope he sticks to his word and distances himself from Sarah. I would even involve HR to let them know what is going on in case she gets vindictive and tries to cause trouble at work. I'm happy to hear that you're proceeding cautiously. I hope everything goes well for you in the end. Third update. Update 3. February 18, 2025, 4 days from previous update, but removed due to posting too many updates. Hi Reddit, we are continuing our work-wife saga. As a lot of you predicted in my last update, Sarah wasn't happy about my husband ending their friendship and trying to put a distance between him and her. I seriously thought she was going to reach out to me, but she never did. Why? Because this was never about me. I was not even on her radar except for somebody to tear down. I will give Sarah one thing: she is extremely efficient. She started her campaign long before Monday morning. Over the weekend she reached out to several of my husband's coworkers, mostly male. She told them that my husband had randomly stopped being friends with her and she suspected it was my fault. She said she couldn't believe it, everyone knew how close they were. She just felt bad for him. Wanted to be a friend for him and hopefully help him out of our terrible marriage. She went on and on about how she couldn't believe how much this is going to affect her during her working hours and that she didn't know if she can continue working at this job. One of the female workers at my husband's job messaged me all of this. As a lot of you predicted, she is gearing up to accuse my husband of sexual harassment. Monday alone she has put herself in the path of my husband multiple times. It kind of feels like she's setting up to do something, and he said she had an argument because she's doing a lot of odd things, at least according to my husband. Think stuff like intentionally following my husband into a room or a section of the office that is somewhat closed off, accidentally emailing him or forwarding him things, going to his cubicle multiple times a day for no reason, sitting close to him in meetings. It seems harmless, but really it feels like she's gearing up for something. My husband did go to HR first thing Monday morning, and like I kind of thought, they pretty much said they can't do anything unless it affects work or working hours. His HR is not the greatest. He did let them know what she was doing today, but honestly, I don't think they took him seriously. We've been thinking about moving. The only thing that keeps us here is really his mom, so he might just transfer jobs? We're not really sure. I hope things don't escalate anymore, and since he went to HR already, I'm hoping that nothing big happens. I'd like to give a little update about our counseling. To all the people who tell me that I'm making a mistake by giving my husband another chance and trying to work it out. I am so happy I don't listen to you. I understand it was a shitty situation. I lived through it. I know it is. I know how it felt. But counseling has revealed a lot about my husband that I didn't even know. Apparently he was bullied severely in high school, and he kind of went through a little glow up when he went into college. Sarah is definitely one of those stereotypical blonde pretty girls, and my husband admits that it did kind of feel like he finally got his chance to be popular in a social setting. My husband admitted that Sarah basically mirrored everything about him. He likes his dislikes. She talked to him like he walked on water. It definitely sounded like she was boosting his ego in a manipulative fashion. Like I said, I understand this isn't just a forgive and move on kind of situation, but hearing my husband talk about how it felt the way it affected him, it made me have a lot more sympathy for him. I still haven't come back home, but we're doing it one day at a time. I went and had lunch with him on Monday, and I'm going again today. I'm trying to be there for him so he doesn't feel alone. I'm really ready for all this to die down. I'm hoping it doesn't get taken farther at work, but if it does, we'll deal with it. OP, your husband should be documenting everything, in writing, as it occurs. And then, provide it to management. In addition, a consultation and possible engagement of a seasoned labor law employment attorney. After 12 years building my father's company to $75 million, he gave it to my brother. Did they really think I'd just accept that? After 12 years of operating my father's company, I finally increased its value to $75 million. At a family supper, my father glanced at me and smiled. "Your brother will take over now." My heart dropped, but I smiled back. The following morning at work, everything changed. I vividly remember my father's smile that night, his hand resting proudly on my brother's shoulder, as if he had already made up his mind before saying the words that would change everything. "Your brother will take over now." I felt my stomach plummet, but years of skill kept my expression calm. I smiled back, like if his words hadn't pierced right through me, unraveling 12 years of my life's work in an instant. The dining room was alive with the clinking of glasses and the gentle hum of talks among extended relatives and close business associates. This was more than just a family dinner. It was a celebration. A minute to honor everything we had built. Everything I'd built. My father founded Harper & Company when I was a child, a small logistics company that struggled to stay alive during its early years. I grew up watching my father fight to keep things going, working late hours, foregoing family holidays, and always pursuing the next contract to make ends meet. When I was 24, fresh out of business school, he eventually let me in. Though I had to fight for the opportunity. And I had done more than simply step in. Harper & Company had grown from a struggling regional logistics concern to a nationwide powerhouse under my leadership, with operations expanded, million-dollar contracts secured, and cutting-edge technology integrated. What was once a small, virtually bankrupt company has grown into an industry leader valued at $75 million. But, at this moment, none of it mattered. My father had already made the decision. My brother Ethan would take over. Not me? A gentle wave of approval rippled over the table, with murmurs of congratulations directed toward Ethan. I watched as he lowered his gaze, pretending modesty. Though I knew better. Ethan had never completely invested in the firm. He'd spent the last decade jumping from one failed business to the next, never quite finding his feet. He was not interested in logistics. He was not interested in operations. However, he was interested in power. I'd spent 12 years proving myself, starting Harper & Company from the bottom up, making every difficult decision, late-night strategy call, and contract negotiation. Ethan hadn't done any of it. And yet here we were. Nonetheless, I swallowed my emotions. I'd learned a long time ago that exhibiting pain was considered a weakness in this household. I reached for my wine glass and steadied my hand before lifting it. Lisa? Smile. Smile. To Ethan, I replied, my voice smooth and controlled. The visitors raised their glasses, unaware of the tempest developing behind my eyes. My mother looked at me from across the table, an unreadable expression on her face. But I knew she understood. Unlike my father, Mom had always recognized the effort I put in. But she refused to interfere. She never did. Then there was my father, smiling with the same unflinching assurance, fully oblivious that his decision had put something in motion. Ethan met my eyes from across the table, a smirk barely visible on the corner of his lips. That was the moment I knew. This was not solely my father's decision. Ethan had waited for this. He had carefully positioned himself, portraying the loyal son who had finally discovered his purpose. My father, a staunch conservative, saw no problem in his rationale. The kingdom should be passed down from father to son. A daughter's efforts were always viewed as temporary, a footnote in history, no matter how hard she worked to show different. But what they didn't realize, and none of them had considered, was that I had spent the previous 12 years not only developing a company, but also consolidating my position inside it. And the next morning, they'd figure out what that meant. That night, I hardly slept. My thoughts replayed every sacrifice I'd made for Harper & Company, late nights, missed birthdays, and relationships strained under the weight of my desire. I had given everything to this company. And now they expect me to just step aside? They'd underestimated me. By 3 a.m., I was in my home office, typing furiously on my keyboard. Each contract, every share, all executive agreements. Nobody knew how this company worked better than I did. Ethan expected a smooth transition, that by next week, his name would be on the office door, and his employment would be guaranteed. What he didn't realize was that while my father was busy making public appearances and my brother was busy pretending to understand the business, I had secured something much more valuable. Control. I entered Harper & Company headquarters at exactly 8:45 a.m., as I had done for the previous 12 years. The same walls. The same polished floors. The same hum of efficiency persisted as staff settled into their routines. But today was different. Today, I didn't walk into my office, I was walking into a battleground. The reception area was unusually quiet, the type of silence that comes before a storm. They knew. The whispers had already begun. The story of my father's declaration during dinner had circulated quickly. Employees looked at me with uncomfortable looks, avoiding direct eye contact, unsure where their loyalty should rest. I did not acknowledge them. I strolled confidently, my heels tapping on the marble flooring, my stance solid. Never show them you are disturbed. I entered my office. Shutting the door behind me, I had exactly 15 minutes until my father and Ethan arrived, expecting them to take over as CEO and heir apparent respectively. 15 minutes before their entire strategy disintegrated in front of them. I sat at my desk, inhaled deeply, and then turned on my computer. The screen displayed a list of sensitive documents and contracts that they had never considered looking at and assumed did not matter. I opened my ownership records, lingering my hands over the keyboard for a moment before clicking on the file labeled, Executive Shareholder Agreement. And then I waited. A strong knock on my door came at precisely 9 a.m. I did not bother answering. the door opened, and my father and Ethan strolled in, both exuding confidence. His, inborn. Ethan's, carefully crafted. My father walked in like a monarch surveying his realm, and Ethan, dressed in an expensive navy suit, flashed me a smug, triumphant grin. It took everything I had not to laugh. My father said, "Lisa," in his customary forceful tone, as if acknowledging me was a favor. "I assume you're aware of the transition happening today?" Transition. Interesting wording. "I'm aware," I replied easily, reclining back in my chair. I looked at Ethan, whose smirk became wider. "Good," my father said, nodding as if we all agreed. "Ethan will be stepping in as the new CEO. We'll need you to help with the handover, get him familiar with the operations before you officially move on." I raised an eyebrow. "Move on?" I repeated, faking ignorance. "Dad, I think you're mistaken about something." His face twitched with annoyance. He was used to my silent cooperation and ability to follow instructions. He was unprepared for this. "Lisa," he murmured, his voice tight, like if addressing a child. "This isn't up for debate, we've already made the decision." I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Oh, I know, Dad," I answered softly. "The thing is, you don't have the authority to make that decision." Ethan scoffs quietly and shakes his head. "Lisa, don't make this difficult, we're trying to do this the easy way." I did not respond. Instead, I went for my remote and clicked a button. The enormous screen on my office wall displayed a document that I had been examining earlier. Executive Shareholders Agreement signed on August 17, 2015. Signatories, Lisa Harper, James Harper, father, and Ethan Harper. My father's face paled somewhat. I turned to Ethan. "Do you even know what this document is?" He crossed his arms and shifted in discomfort. "A shareholders agreement?" he wondered. I nodded. "Yes. And do you know what it says?" I tapped the screen to highlight an important clause. This document was drafted when Harper & Company was restructuring. It clearly states that any transfer of executive power, such as appointing a new CEO, requires the approval of all majority shareholders. I caught my father's gaze. "And I, Dad, hold 60% of the company's shares." The hush that followed was smothering. My father's expression darkened. "That's impossible," Ethan whispered as he moved forward to examine the page. "Actually, it's very possible," I replied calmly. "You see, over the years, while you were busy failing at every startup you touched, and Dad was busy playing the role of business patriarch, I was doing something else." I leaned forwards. I was securing my place. I turned back to face my father. "Remember when you needed capital for expansion in 2017? You agreed to give me an additional 15% of your shares in exchange for my investment. And in 2019, when we had that court dispute, another 10% was transferred under my name as collateral, which you never bothered to reclaim. That, plus my original 35%, gives me the controlling stake." My dad's jaw clenched. "But, Ethan..." Ethan was in a panic. "You have to be bluffing," he exclaimed. I took out a second document. "This is the most recent legal filing with the state. Want to verify?" Ethan took the paper and scanned it, his face losing color with every passing second. "You can't do it," he muttered. "Dad, tell her she can't do this." My father stayed silent. Because he knew. I had lawfully outmaneuvered him. And he couldn't do anything about it. I sighed softly and stood up. "I'm not firing you, Ethan," I explained. "I don't want to force you into the real job market, but you will report to me and work under my guidance. Otherwise..." I motioned to the door. "You're free to leave." Ethan looked at my father, his eyes begging, but for the first time in his life, my father had no response. There was no way to fix it, because it wasn't his company anymore. That was my. The silence in my workplace felt oppressive. Ethan still held the official document in his hand, his fingers white from holding it too firmly. My father remained motionless beside him, his expression unreadable. But I knew better. He was calculating, trying to figure a way out of this. There was not one. I had spent years preparing for this moment, not because I expected treachery, but because experience had taught me never to presume loyalty in situations of authority. For the first time in my life, my father didn't recognize me. Maybe he never had. "Is that it?" Ethan eventually spoke, his voice tinged with resentment. "Are you just taking everything?" I laughed softly, without humor. "Are you taking everything?" I repeated, moving closer to him. "Ethan, I created this company from nothing. I made every contract, expansion, and innovation a reality. While you were busy failing above, I was keeping this company running. So no, I am not taking anything. I leaned in slightly. I'm just keeping what's already mine. Ethan's face contorted in rage, but he had no response. He knew I was correct. And worse, so did my father. He had spent years believing that bloodline was more important than skill. That his son would receive what was properly mine. He'd underestimated me. And now he had to pay for his folly. My father eventually ended the hush. You're making a mistake, Lisa. His voice was calm and calculated, but I could sense the pressure underlying. Families should stick together. Do you truly want to end this relationship? I met his eyes unflinchingly. Dad, I said, you burned this bridge the moment you made your decision without me. His lips form a thin line. Business is larger than one person, we can develop a solution that benefits everyone. I cocked my head slightly, simulating interest. Oh, I agree. I let the words hang in the air before proceeding. That's why I'm offering you both a choice. I went to Ethan first. You can stay with the company, I added, keeping my voice smooth and professional. But you will not be CEO. You will serve as an advisor with limited authority. Your compensation will be generous, but you will report to me. Ethan stiffened, but I did not stop. Or, I added, you can walk away. I will acquire your shares at market value. You can take the money and start working on a new project. My dad scoffed. You're acting like you hold all the cards. I smiled. I do. My words were followed by a dense hush. I let them sit in it, let them experience what it was like to be powerless. Finally, my father breathed, shaking his head in astonishment. I never thought you'd do this, he grumbled. Not to your own family. At his comments, I felt a searing pang. Not for your own family. I wanted to tell him he was the one who did it. That he chose to cast me aside, as if I were only temporary. But I did not. In the end, it didn't matter. What was important was that I would not let them remove what I had built. Not now. Not ever. Ethan was the first to storm out. Good riddance. I knew my brother well enough to anticipate his next action. He would approach our relatives and family acquaintances, presenting himself as a victim of corporate deception. I didn't care. I was not here to win their approval. I came here to win my future. My father waited for a while longer, as if expecting me to alter my mind. When I didn't respond, he nodded slowly. You've changed, he stated gently. I met his gaze. No, Dad. I just finally stopped pretending. Then he departed. I breathed and returned to my chair. I should have felt victorious. I had fought for my position, and won. But as I glanced at the vacant doorway, I sensed something else. A soft, lingering aching. A part of me had always wished for my father's approval. Some small, desperate part of me believed that if I worked hard enough and proved myself repeatedly, he would eventually see me. But he never truly looked. So now he had no choice but to see me for who I truly was. Not his daughter, not his temporary replacement. The genuine boss of Harper & Company. I returned to my computer, my attention changing. I had spent 12 years creating this business. Now I'd spend the next 12 years making it untouchable. My father and brother attempted to take everything from me. But in the end, they were the ones who had lost everything. For the first time in 12 years, my workplace felt empty. There were no phone calls from my father. Ethan sent no passive-aggressive emails, just silence. But silence did not indicate serenity. It meant the struggle had started. I knew my father wouldn't leave peacefully. And Ethan? He would fight tooth and nail to restore what he believed was his birthright. I wasn't naive enough to believe this was over. It had just begun. By the next morning, I could detect an undercurrent of discomfort in the company. Employees who had greeted me with confidence last week now appeared nervous. As if they were terrified to choose a side. Several department heads avoided eye contact. I knew exactly what was going on. My father and Ethan were using the Whisper network. Old family pals, board members, senior executives. They were spreading doubts. Painting myself as frigid, ruthless, disloyal. Ethan, in particular, had taken on the character of the wounded son, betrayed by his sister. I could see him now, seated in a high-end restaurant, pretending to be sorry as he told our investors how I had taken the firm from him. And what about my father? He would not need to say much at all. Just a deep sigh. A shaky head. The neatly arranged words. I only ever wanted the best for my children. It was calculated. And risky. Because, if they could turn my board members and senior executives against me, they may force me out of my own company. At the very least, make my leadership impossible. I wasn't going to let that happen. That afternoon, I scheduled an emergency executive meeting. As I entered the boardroom, I could feel the tension in the air. Half of the room averted my gaze. The other half observed me too closely, waiting for me to slip. I took a seat at the head of the table. My seat. Let's not waste time, I added, my tone steady. I know there have been conversations, behind closed doors, over drinks, in hushed voices. I let my gaze sweep the room, pausing on each individual just long enough to cause them to squirm uncomfortably. I'm also aware that some of you are asking if my leadership is sustainable. Several folks tensed. Nobody spoke. I tapped my fingers on the polished wooden table. Let's clear that up now. I displayed a presentation on the screen behind me. Numbers, data, facts. I transformed this company from a struggling regional business to a $75 million industry leader. Under my leadership, we've increased sales by 300% over the last 5 years and entered 6 new markets. I turned to the CFO. Paul, do we have a single financial indicator suggesting this company is in trouble under my leadership? Paul hesitated before shaking his head. In fact, projections show another 20% growth in the next quarter. I nodded. So let's be honest about what's happening here. I leaned forwards. My father and brother are not unhappy because the business is faltering. They are not upset because I am failing to lead. They are furious because they expected me to step aside and let Ethan take over. Regardless of qualification. Regardless of the outcome. The room was silent. Then I dropped the true bombshell. I also know that some of you have been contacted in the last 24 hours, offered incentives to push for my resignation. I tilted my head slightly. If anyone here would like to disclose those conversations now, this is your chance. Several folks shuffled uncomfortably. Then, after a lengthy period, one of the senior executives cleared his throat. I received a call, he said. From your father. He said he was considering making an official appeal to the board. I nodded, not surprised. And did he offer anything in return for your support? A pause. Then, a slow nod. There it is. I breathed and stood up. My father built this company, I replied. I will not dispute that. But I went further than he could have. And I will not let him manage it from the outside. I let my voice drop slightly, controlled and threatening. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. I gathered my papers and looked each executive in the eyes. If anyone here believes my father and brother deserve control, now is the time to make your move. Silence. Nobody moved. Good. I turned and went away, head held high. It wasn't just about keeping my company. This was to ensure that they never imagined they could take it from me again. That night, I made my own call. Not to any board member, not for an investor. But what about the media? By morning, the business section of every major news outlet featured the following headline. Power shift at Harper & Co., Lisa Harper outmaneuvers family in boardroom battle. I'd made my move. Now it was their turn. And I waited. My inbox burst the morning after my story went to publication. Emails. I missed calls. Messages from reporters, investors, and board members. Some were supportive. Some were cautious. However, most of them had one question in common. Is it true? I let them wait. I knew what game my father was playing. He had spent decades mastering the art of public perception. He understood that reputation was important in business. If he couldn't beat me in the boardroom, he would undercut me in public. And that was exactly what he was attempting to do. By lunchtime, the first counterattack had arrived. A press release is nicely made, precisely phrased, but full of lies. Harper & Company has always been a family-owned business. We are disappointed by recent occurrences, but we remain dedicated to sustaining the ideals that have driven this organization. Changes in leadership are unavoidable, and we expect to transition seamlessly as we move forward. It was subtle. But I knew what it was actually saying. Lisa is irresponsible. Lisa is unstable. Lisa isn't a team player. I was not surprised. I was, however, incensed. I sat in my office, watching the news as industry analysts argued over my leadership. Was Lisa Harper too aggressive in her takeover? Will her lack of cooperation hurt the company in the long run? Can she recover from this PR disaster? They spoke as if I wasn't watching. As if I hadn't already planned my next move. Because if my father and Ethan desired a public conflict, I was planning to give them one. I did not release a statement. I did not call a press conference. Instead, I placed one phone call. To an old buddy in investigative journalism. I have something for you, I explained. But you'll need to move fast. An hour later, I emailed over documents. Emails. Financial reporting. Internal records. Evidence. Harper and Company, under my father's guidance, had engaged in unethical business activities throughout time. I had spent the previous decade quietly cleaning up. The news broke within 24 hours. Behind the scenes at Harper and Company, a legacy of hidden debts and financial cover-ups. The piece was brutal. It applauded my leadership for improving the company's financial situation. It was critical of my father's mismanagement, but most importantly, it proved that I was the sole reason Harper and Company had survived. Just like that. The narrative changed. The board has stopped doubting me. The investors stopped hesitating. And what about my father? He had nowhere to hide. 2 days later, my father finally contacted me. I let the phone ring 3 times before answering. "Lisa," he murmured in a tense voice. "We need to talk." I slumped back in my chair. "Do we?" Silence. Finally, a sigh. "You didn't have to do that." I gave a tiny laugh. "Neither did you?" "This company was supposed to be a legacy," he told me. "For the family. For both of you." I had a familiar pain. A small, naive part of me had once desired that, but not anymore. "Dad," I spoke gently. "If you wanted me to safeguard the legacy, you should have trusted me with it. Instead, you attempted to steal it from me." Another prolonged stillness. He asked, almost reluctantly, "What happens now?" I breathed slowly. Now, I'm going to make sure you never touch my company again." The conflict was over. My father had lost. Ethan had vanished. And I'd won. However, when I sat in my office, staring out at the metropolitan skyline, I felt no happiness, no victory, just emptiness. I had spent the last 12 years fighting for Harper and Company, building it, safeguarding it, and making it stronger than ever. Nonetheless, the cost of that win outweighed my expectations. Because I had secured my position, I had misplaced something else along the road. My family. The next day, I came into the office as if nothing had happened. But everybody knew the truth. The whispers had ended. The doubt had dissipated. I was no longer simply Lisa Harper, CEO. I was Lisa Harper, the lady who outmaneuvered her father and brother and emerged victorious. Some people appreciated me for it. Some scared me because of it. And some were still waiting for me to fall. I let them wait. At midday, my father and I convened in the conference room for our final conversation. He seemed exhausted. Older, as if the weight of what had happened had finally fallen on his shoulders. I waited for him to speak first. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "I'm retiring," he announced simply. "Effective immediately." I did not react. I had anticipated this. "I'll sell my remaining shares," he added. "I'll keep a small percentage as an investor, but I won't be involved anymore." I examined him attentively. "And Ethan?" His jaw stiffened. "He's gone," my father admits. "Took the buyout, he won't be back." A part of me knew it would end like this. Ethan had never been strong enough to face his own difficulties. When he realized he had lost, he did what he always did. Run. Still, hearing it out made something inside me ache. No regret. Not guilty. Simply the finality of it all. I nodded. Understood. My father exhaled and rubbed his temples, as if he had a headache. Then, after a long gap, he said something unexpected. "I underestimated you." It was not an apology, but it was as close as I'd ever come. And strangely, I realized I didn't need it anymore. A month later, Harper and Company looked nothing like it did previously. Who were the previous board members who supported my father and Ethan? Gone. What about the executives who had questioned my leadership? Replaced? The company had always performed well under my leadership. But now, it was absolutely mine. And with that control comes a new perspective. I introduced proposals that my father had consistently rejected. He has described modernized systems as unnecessary. He ventured into industries that he had previously avoided. Within 6 months, profits skyrocketed. Within a year, we had reached the $100 million milestone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't battling solely to prove myself. I was fighting to create something that no one could take from me again. A year later, I met my father for dinner. It was the first time we had talked since his retirement. He looked different. Quieter. He wasn't angry now. Simply accepting. "I read about the latest deal you closed," he continued as he drank. "It was a smart move." I smirked faintly. "I know." A shadow of a smile appeared on his lips. There was no longer tension between us. There is no war left to fight. Just the simple, undeniable truth. He'd tried to push me aside. And I had proven him incorrect. He lifted his glass. "To Harper and Company," he stated. This time, as I clinked my glass with his, I did not feel angry. I didn't feel resentful. Only tranquility. Because I'd already won. And I no longer needed his permission to know it. As I sit in my office now, overlooking the city where I built my empire, I reflect on the lessons this trip has taught me. That family might be your greatest adversary. Loyalty is a currency, not a promise. That power is never given. It's taken. But more importantly, sometimes, the finest method to prove your worth is to quit seeking validation and create something so powerful that they can never ignore you again. I don't have any regrets. Harper and Company are now mine. And I aim to make sure that no one forgets it. I was ignored by my family, overshadowed by my mom's favoritism. No matter how hard I tried, I was always blamed for my sister's mistakes. I was never a favorite. That was my sister, the golden child. The person who could do no wrong, no matter how vicious she was or how much she got away with. My mother adored her. And me? I was just there. An afterthought. A shadow in my own house. It's always been this way. Growing up, I immediately realized that my opinions did not matter. My dreams were unimportant. My feelings? Either disregarded or mocked. My sister failed a test because I distracted her. When she lost a buddy, I was very likely the cause. When she broke something, I must have pushed her. And my mother? She believed her. Every single time. I strived to be a perfect daughter. I worked hard. Received good grades. I remained silent as they insulted me. I never acted out. Never fought back. I hoped that if I demonstrated my worth, they would eventually love me as much as they loved her. However, nothing changed. And suddenly everything came crumbling down. It began with an argument. Well, they were arguing. I was just standing there and letting them rant. My sister had failed a class and, rather than accepting responsibility, blamed me. Again. I didn't know how. Perhaps I stressed her out simply by being. "You've ruined our lives," she exclaimed. I barely had time to respond before my mother added, "We'd be happier without you." And that was it. The moment that left me broken. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not beg them to take it back. I just nodded. Then I turned around, walked to my room, got a backpack, and packed whatever I could fit. They did not stop me. They did not even watch me depart. Just like that. I was gone. I stepped outside into the night, the weight of my backpack pressing against my shoulders. However, nothing compared to the heaviness in my chest. I walked without a destination. Simply putting distance between myself and the house I'd never fully called home. It was frigid. I recall that vividly. The air nipped at my skin, but I didn't shudder. I was numb. I had always imagined leaving would be spectacular, like in the movies. Maybe with tears rolling down my cheeks. Maybe with one final lingering look at the house I was leaving. However, there was none of it. No one pursued me. Nobody called my name. Nobody cared that I didn't know where to go. I had no plans. There's no safety net. My savings? Laughable. I had a few $100s put away from modest tutoring gigs, but I knew one thing for sure, I'd never go back. I chose a cheap motel for the night and paid for a single room with trembling hands. I glanced at the bed but couldn't make myself lie down. Instead, I sat at the small desk, the weak yellow light flickering above me, trying to decide what to do next. I did not have a degree. I didn't have any connections. I barely had any money. But I had one advantage. I'd spent my whole life being ignored. Underestimated. Nobody had ever handed me anything. If I was going to succeed, I'd have to create something from nothing. I began with what I knew. Studying. It sounded ludicrous at the time, but I was really excellent at it. I had spent years excelling in school, instructing other students, and assisting individuals with complicated subjects. Maybe, just maybe, I can make that into something. The next day, I went to a small cafe, ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu, and utilized the free Wi-Fi to apply for every online tutoring opportunity I could find. I kept my charges low, just enough to entice folks to notice me. Initially, it was just enough to get by. I lived on quick noodles and dollar store foods. I rented a room in a shared apartment with 3 strangers who barely knew I existed. However, it was still better than where I had come from. Because every day, I awoke knowing that no one would yell at me. Nobody would blame me for their failings. Nobody would say I was wrecking their life. And it was enough. The months have passed. My tutoring opportunities grew. 1 client became 3. 3 multiplied into 10. I soon made enough money to move into a tiny studio apartment that was scarcely larger than a box. But it was mine. Despite all of this, my family never phoned. Not once. Not on my birthday. Not on holidays. Not even to see if I was alive. It hurts, as old wounds do. Deep. Silent. Lingering. But I assured myself everything was good. If they did not care, neither did I. A year into my new existence, things began to alter. I had established a reputation as an instructor specializing in college entrance tests. Students from all throughout the country reached out, begging for assistance. However, I was still trading time for money. And I knew it wasn't sustainable. That's when I had an idea. What if I combined my lessons into something bigger? Something scalable? I spent several months researching digital marketing. Watching hours of free YouTube content. I read every article I could find. Then, I began designing my own online course. The ultimate SAT preparation guide. There was a risk. I spent every spare money I had on developing the course, creating a website, and running advertisements. Sales began slowly, 1 here and 2 there. Then something changed. Word of mouth spread. Students began raving about my approaches and shared them online. And, almost overnight, it burst. I awoke one morning to see that my sales had tripled. Then quadrupled. Within a few months, I was earning more than I had ever dreamed imaginable. I moved into a swanky high-rise apartment, the kind I used to fantasize about. I traveled. I met folks who genuinely respected me. Created friendships that were not based on obligation or blood. I'd done it. I'd created myself from nothing. And my family? They were nowhere to be found. Not a single message. Not a single call. They didn't care about me. Until this morning. My phone vibrated. I scarcely looked at it. Then I noticed the notifications. Mom has 6 missed calls. Sister has 8 missed calls. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. After all this time, they had made it apparent that they never wanted me. I let out a slow breath. I'd changed. I wasn't the helpless, needy girl they had kicked out of their life. I wasn't their punching bag anymore. Whatever they wanted, this was not supposed to be an apology. And I had no intention of making things easy for them. I sat there and stared at the screen. For what seemed like hours. But in actuality, it just took a few minutes. My thoughts raced. What could they want after all this time? Mom has never apologized for the way she treated me. She'd never revealed that she always picked my sister above me. And my sister? She hadn't even realized I was gone. Until now. But now. After all. They wanted me. I eventually decided to pick up. It was almost weird to hear her voice after so long. Hello? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Sweetie, please, we need to talk. Mom's voice quivered. Sweetie. After everything. She hadn't called me that in years. The phony compassion wounded. What's going on? I inquired, not masking my disbelief. There was a prolonged pause. We've fallen on hard times, Mom explained, her voice quivering. Your sister, she's been having trouble at school again, and with everything going on, we just don't have enough. She said with hesitation. We need your help. I bit my lip, a strange combination of satisfaction and wrath welling up inside me. Was this why they called me now? What kind of assistance? I inquired, keeping my voice calm. We need money, she said abruptly. Your sister's tuition, it's due. And we have bills we can't pay. I know we've never been there for you, but please. We're struggling. We need you to help us. We know it's a lot to ask, but please, we've tried everything. I could hear her sniffles. Perhaps it was genuine. Perhaps it was just guilt attempting to make its way back in. Please, she repeated. We need you back. We need your support. The words remained in the air. My support. They had been rejecting this assistance for years. I closed my eyes for a while, attempting to calm the flood of emotions that threatened to choke me. How could they think this was acceptable? For the first time in a long time, I felt more than apathy. It was hilarious. You're serious? I inquired, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You really think I'll come back and help you? After everything? There was a gap followed by my mother's anxious cry. Please don't do this. We know we messed up, but we're your family. You can't just leave us like this. I clenched my fist. You never cared about me when I needed you, I replied, my voice shaking with restrained rage. You were too busy with your golden child. You let me disappear. You told me you'd be better off without me. I paused, feeling wrath well up in my chest. But I kept it in check. I was not going to let them know how deeply they had hurt me. I was not going to let them turn this around on me. I don't owe you anything, I said, my words as cutting as glass. Another prolonged delay. Then, why? My sister's voice rang out next, agitated and panicked. I know I was horrible to you. But I need your help. I messed up, okay? I didn't mean it. I've been trying to fix things, but I don't know what to do anymore. I nearly laughed. Fix things? How can you treat years of pain? I don't want your apologies, I replied bitterly. And I don't owe you my money or my help. You can figure it out, just like I did. But please, just... My sister's voice wavered, but I shut it off. You should have thought about this before you kicked me out of your lives. I could feel my heart race as I hung up the phone. However, the adrenaline was not solely derived from rage. It stemmed from satisfaction. Knowing they needed me gave me a sense of satisfaction. After years of silence and pretending I did not exist, they needed me. I stood up and paced the room, allowing the gravity of the situation to set in. They were not calling to apologize. They weren't calling because they had missed me. They were phoning because they wanted me to remedy their mess. And while they struggled, they recognized what they had thrown away. But that didn't matter to me. They did not deserve me anymore. I was finished. But deep down, a part of me wanted to make them beg even longer. Make them uncomfortable. The phone vibrated again. I glanced at the screen. Mom, again. Her message carried the same desperate tone. Please. I know we can't undo the past, but we need you. I grinned. They had no idea what they were getting into. The phone vibrated again. The screen flashed with another message from my mother. Please, I'm begging you. We don't know where else to turn. I stared at the message, my finger hovering above the screen. Part of me wanted to dismiss it completely. Following all. Hadn't I previously answered them? But the desperation in her tone made me hesitate. For a time. Then I shook my head. I was not going to soften. I was not going to be the one to improve their lives again. The thing is, I'd constructed something for myself. My empire, so to speak. My achievement wasn't solely about money. It was about the ability to choose who would be a part of my life. And my family? They no longer deserved that luxury. I put the phone down. I walked to the window. I looked out at the city. From this vantage point, everything seemed far away. So little. My former life's troubles felt like they belonged to someone else. I wasn't that person anymore. I was not their burden. Nevertheless, the messages kept pouring. I took a breath. I was not going to give in. I was not going to let them influence me with their guilt. But, deep down, there was a flare of something. Perhaps it was a pity. Perhaps curiosity. Perhaps something darker. But I resisted. The following morning, I awoke to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. Again. A quick peek at the screen confirmed it was from my sister. This time, I paused. Should I bother reading this? But my thumb swiped across the screen before I could think about it any longer. The message came in. I know I can't change the past, but I've been trying so hard to get into college. They rejected me, and now Mom's saying that if we don't get the money for the retake, I'll never make it. Please. Please. I'm so sorry. I felt an unusual sensation. Not sympathetic, not guilty. But something made me halt. Was this genuine? Was my sister really begging me, or was she simply doing her part? I took a deep breath, my hand trembling as I typed my response. You never cared when I needed you. Why should I care now? I pressed send. The weight that settled in my chest felt heavier than I anticipated. A part of me felt cold and detached. I had built some protective armor over the years. But there's another part of me. It wanted to believe her. But I could not. I continued to work throughout the day. But, every time I looked at my phone, there were additional notifications. Calls. Texts. Voicemails. They were unrelenting. I could feel their desperation creeping through the screen and the words. They were beginning to disintegrate under the weight of their own decisions. But what did they expect of me? They'd made their bed. They'd picked their route. Now was the time for them to face the consequences. But then, at 7 p.m., I noticed something that made my heart skip a beat. A note from Mom. I need to talk to you. This isn't just about money. I know I messed up, we messed up. But I'm asking you, as a mother, to come home. I need you. We need you. Please don't leave us like this. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. I briefly pondered calling her back. Perhaps I could hear her out. Maybe I can find a way to make this work. But then, I thought about what they had put me through. They treated me as if I did not matter. I was not going to forget that. I was not their savior. With a long exhale, I typed, "You had your chance. I'm done." I pressed send. And something within me cracked. I knew I'd made the proper decision. At the same time, I felt a lingering ache in my chest. Because deep inside, I couldn't help wondering. What if this was their final scream for help? What if they truly were suffering? But in the end, I learned one thing. I could not repair them. They were beyond rescuing. If they wanted anything from me, it needed to be on my terms. I put my phone down and attempted to forget about them. But the following evening, while I was sitting in my living room, going through my phone, I heard a knock on the door. A sharp and fast rap. There was a pause afterwards. I looked up, puzzled. Who might that be? I stood up and moved toward the door, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on edge. Something did not feel right. Looking through the peephole, my stomach sank. There they were. Mom. Dad. My sister. I am standing on my porch. They looked like they hadn't slept for days. Their faces were worn, drawn, and pale. But it wasn't only their appearance that made my pulse quicken. It was the fact that they had arrived here. Uninvited. I hesitated for a time, unsure what to do. Part of me wished to ignore them. Turn around and walk away, pretending I hadn't noticed them. But the wrath I had been suppressing surged up. I wasn't about to let them enter my space, not after all they had done. I opened the door just enough to see them clearly, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you doing here?" I questioned, my voice low and angry. Mom stepped forward first, her eyes wide with despair. Please, just hear us out," she begged, her voice shaking. I stared at her. The same woman who said she'd be better off without me. Who had repeatedly shoved me aside. So now, she was standing on my porch, pleading for assistance. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked, my voice rising. "You think just because you show up at my door, I'm going to take you back? You think I'm going to forget everything you've done?" Dad shuffled uneasily behind Mom but did not speak. My sister stood next to him, staring at the ground and avoiding my look. We're sorry," Mom admitted, her voice breaking. "We've been trying to reach you, but we know we've messed up. It's just so hard, and we don't know what else to do. You're the only one who can help us. The only one who can help you." I felt the rage surge like a tidal wave. "You didn't need me before. Why now?" "You had years to fix this," I retorted. "Years. And you never once bothered to reach out. To make things right. Not when it mattered. And now you think you can just show up here and make everything okay?" They remained silent for a minute, evidently surprised by my coolness. Mom's eyes filled with tears. But I could not force myself to care. "We've been struggling," she said in a desperate whisper. "We don't have money for rent. Your sister's future is slipping away. I don't know what else to do." I clenched my fist. "Don't tell me you don't know what else to do," I exclaimed, my voice quivering with rage. "You had choices. You made choices. And I wasn't part of them. But now that everything's falling apart, suddenly you want me?" Mom took a step forward, hand outstretched. "Please, just listen." I slammed the door on her face. The sound resonated throughout the home. The boom rang in my ears. And for a brief moment, I felt a rush of power. I could finally take control of this situation. But while I stood there with my hand on the door handle, something gnawed at me. Something twisted in my stomach. It wasn't a case of guilt, it was terrible. It was the knowledge that they'd come here, to me, because they had nowhere else to go. And they had shown up. Not because they wanted to improve our connection, not because they were genuinely remorseful, but they needed me, and I despised it. They did not deserve me. But rage was not the only emotion I felt. A part of me wanted to hurt them. To show them how terribly they had messed up. Make them suffer the consequences of their own conduct. And the fact that they assumed they could simply walk up on my doorstep. It got me angry more than anything else. I moved away from the door, leaving them standing on the other side. But they did not leave. I could hear them conversing outside. Mom was pleading. My sister was crying. Dad was attempting to console them. I couldn't take it anymore. The rage within me was tremendous, and I knew I'd regret not doing something. So I reopened the door. There they were. Standing there. Still waiting. Desperation was written all over their features. Mom's eyes were red from crying. My sister hung her head low in shame, and Dad? He appeared defeated. Like a man who had lost everything and had no idea how to get it back. For a moment, I simply stood there, taking in the view of them. The family that had harmed me. The family had made me feel useless. Invisible. So now, they were here. Asking for assistance. But what do I owe them? Nothing. I took a deep breath. And then, without saying anything, I took one last glance at them. No. You don't get to come here and expect forgiveness just because you're struggling now. The words came out coldly. Hard. Like a scalpel cutting through the strain. I didn't feel any regret as I stated them. They deserve to hear the truth. You had years to fix this, I said, my tone steady but forceful. Years to realize what you lost. But you didn't care then. And I'm not going to be your solution now. I noticed Mom open her mouth in protest. But I held up my hand to silence her. I built my life. My success. From the ground up. And I'm not going to let you destroy it too. You don't get to come into my life and expect everything to magically change because you've hit rock bottom. Their eyes started welling up again. But I felt nothing. There is no guilt, no regret. Just some calm satisfaction. I knew I was finally putting myself first. Go, I stated simply, my tone unyielding. Fix your own mess, I'm done. I closed the door for the final time. Weeks have passed, and I continued living my life. My business has grown, my network expanded, and I felt more energized than ever. I had become the person I had always wished to be. The person who did not have to apologize for their accomplishments. The one who had learned to let go of the negative aspects of their history. I never heard from them again. Not a message. Not a call. And you know what? It was fine. It was the tranquil peace I hadn't realized I'd been seeking. And as time passed, I came to realize something important. The ones who have wronged you, those who abandoned you, are not the people you should seek validation. You are the one who matters. You get to select what happens to your future. In the end, I had discovered one very simple truth. You can't keep giving to individuals who have never given you anything back. The door closed. For good. My stepdaughter's prank went too far, causing a major conflict in our family. Now, my marriage and relationship with her may never be the same. I know the title sounds bad, but please read and throw away plus fake names. I, 38 million, married Judd, 44 feet, a few years ago, and I acquired a stepdaughter, Abby, 14 feet, as a result. I dated Judd when Abby was 8, met her when she was 9, and married Judd when she was 10. I'd say our relationship is okay. She doesn't act bratty towards me and respects me enough as her mom's husband. However, there is one glaring issue about her, and that is her pranking nature. Abby loves to pull pranks. Some examples are her hiding my car keys with what looked like 100 dubs in a box. I found them quickly because she failed to notice my keys have duct tape on them. Another one is when she hid in the fridge, something I still find very weird, to scare the first person who opened it. Well, last Wednesday, I arrived home and it seemed that I was the only one there. Only my shoes were at the doorstep, and I even called out Judd's and Abby's names with no answer. This is somewhat normal as Judd sometimes works late and Abby stays at school for extracurriculars. So I screwed around with my dog, a German Shepherd and Husky mix for anyone that will ask, for a bit, and then I decided to relieve myself. When I got to the bathroom, I noticed that the window cabinet was open. I thought nothing of it at first and unzipped my pants, but then I saw a shadow behind the shower curtains. I thought the worst and immediately punched the figure behind the curtains. Well, as everyone may have guessed from the title, it was Abby. She was making a prank video and I had not noticed that she propped her phone up on the bathroom cabinet with 2 cups. I'm not gonna lie, I did not hold back. I punched her as hard as I could. Her nose looked broken, and when I realized it, I flipped out, and so did she. After maybe 5 minutes of freaking out, I drove her to urgent care and informed Judd of the situation. Her nose was indeed broken and would need about 6 to 12 weeks of recovery. Abby won't talk to me, and as for Judd, she thinks that my action may have been justified, but also thinks I should have approached with more caution, which she has refused to elaborate on. So AITA? Comments. Comment 1. NTA. Get a copy of the video. If Abby starts bitching to people about how her stepdad broke her nose, you are looking at jail time. Get and keep a copy of the evidence that she startled you while you were peeing. You need to sit Judd and Abby down and have a serious conversation. Filming without consent while someone is in the bathroom is a massive invasion of privacy and illegal in many places. If she did this to another kid, it could be considered child PRN. While you are in the bathroom, you feel vulnerable with having your pants down, genitals out. Those feelings increase the fight-flight part of the brain, and that you react on instinct. Please tell Abby that you love her, and never meant to hurt her. Comment 2. And why would a young girl think pranking her stepfather in the bathroom is ever a good idea? She should at least be talked to about pranking anyone in the bathroom, especially with a video? Comment 3. This is so unfortunate. People get killed for this. She's lucky she's alive. That's the normal reaction. To fight. As messed up this is stuck firmly because this is a life lesson. Play stupid games and win stupid prizes. Fortunately it's all on tape, right? So you're protected. What she did is actually what's unforgivable. Her dumb antics are gonna get someone killed or put in jail. Her mother needs to address this. Not one more prank. Ever. Comment 4. How stupid does a 14-year-old have to be to not know that recording someone in the bathroom without their consent is a very bad idea? And what was the stupid prank? Boo, I scared you, so I'm gonna put your reaction and PP on social media. Hey. NTA, but you might want to get legal advice lawyer before a false, and more sinister version gets circulated. Comment 5. As a teacher, I can say that 14-year-olds are indeed very uninformed. Had a 14-year-old once who took 30 minutes to go to the bathroom. When he finally came back, because he was a kid who didn't usually cause trouble, and I was worried, I privately asked, "What the heck took so long?" His response? "I was waiting for people to leave the bathroom." I still didn't get it, so he elaborated. If you use a stall, you're probably trying to shit or do something that you need privacy for, and other people will see your feet under the stall and try to film you by putting their phones over the walls of the stall. I started requiring that students trade their phones for the hall pass after that. Also told the administration, but they didn't do anything. Point is, yes, teenagers are that uninformed that behavior like this doesn't click as being problematic. Update. 12 days later. Well, this blew up big time. Let's address a few things. Abby's pranking nature isn't just situated on me, she has pulled pranks on her friends, the neighbors, and at school. The school has called Judd several times about this as they have resulted in mild vandalism. The refrigerator prank. She was 11 when that happened, not a grown teenager. It was a brand new and very large fridge that my uncle bought and showed it off to everyone. So she climbed in until he opened it again. Judd yelled at her saying that she could have suffocated in there and took her outside to scold her for a few hours. The video itself. The video doesn't show the toilet at all, just the shower curtain. However, the issue still remains that this was a massive invasion of privacy. The video has been deleted and Abby has admitted it was purely her fault. The update. It's been a chaotic week. Judd still refused to elaborate on how the situation should have been handled. I showed the post as a result and she did a 180 turn. She suddenly thought it may be time to stage an intervention and I agreed. We brought some of her friends as well as my cousin's wife Jess. Jess is an officer from another state and Abby seems to respect her. In this intervention we state how we were each affected by her various pranks and how in turn they affected her. Jess also spoke about how much of these pranks border on criminal territory, meaning she could be arrested or face retaliation. It seemed to have gotten to her and Abby cried a bit and promised to do better. When everybody else left, Jess stayed behind and brought to our attention about a disciplinary camp that we could send her to. The program is 6 weeks long and involves group therapy, individual therapy and constructive projects, whatever that means, and is held at a university campus. The program apparently has good reviews. Judd seems dead set in sending her to figure out her core problems. I'm a little hesitant about sending a kid away from home, but I'm the step-parent so I got no say. Edit, update. Okay, I swear Judd must be following my posts because now she's taking back what she said and is now thinking about doing what I and you fellow Redditors suggested in the first place, weekly therapy. So we agreed that I'm gonna find a therapist and I'm gonna front the bill for it since she didn't take this seriously in the first place. Comments. Comment 1. The program apparently has good reviews. Try to get more than just reviews. The troubled teen industry is pretty horrifying. There's a troubled teen subreddit for survivors. It's brutal. Oop. I'm aware, that's why I'm hesitant about this. Comment 2. Oh, thank God, I'm glad you're aware of the troubled teen industry. My heart sank so low when I read that your friend was suggesting it. Maybe it's legit, but I do feel it's a bit of an extreme response. Abby seems like a mostly good kid who just has this one stupid thing that's got stuck in her brain, Normal teen stuff. I find it interesting that Judd did a 180 after reading a post, and now seems to be going from one extreme to the other. No real punishment to all punishment. I would think a bit more about that. I realize you're a step-parent and likely have no say in how Abby is parented, but I find it very concerning that your wife seems to be so easily influenced by outsiders. Honestly, if Abby's able to keep to her word to, if not end her pranks entirely, at least tone it down, I'd say you're all in the clear. Maybe suggest to Judd that you keep this program in reserve in case she needs it, and that she has a chance to prove she's learned her lesson first. Comment 3. Sent away seems extreme. Have you looked into this program? Is it held at a religious college? She might just end up abused at some of these types of teen rehabilitation camps and also just exposed to kids that are worse. I realize it might not be your call, but I would suggest try local therapy first way before sending a kid off. And I agree. Sending a kid away from home will probably just damage them more. But Judd seems intent on dishing out the harshest punishment immediately, thinking that this will nip it at the bud. Or she doesn't want to be seen as an enabler. She changed opinions real fast when I showed her the original post. New update. 7 months later. Well, it's been 7-ish months and there have been a few developments. Let's address some more things before getting there. Up until recently I have been still getting DMs asking why is this brat still in my house, why am I friends with Jess, and why did I name my wife Judd in my posts. I was drinking when I made my first post. I saved a draft and went back to it after a few hours of sobering up, fixing a bunch of grammatical mistakes but clearing some got overlooked and it just stuck. I was planning on calling her Judy. Jess and I are not friends. She is married to my cousin who I do have a good relationship with, as well as their 2 daughters and Jess's daughter. Jess has a serious problem with boundaries. As for why Abba was still living with me, you have to understand, I, her stepfather, broke Abby's, my stepdaughter's, nose. If word got out it would look really bad, I would be seen as an abuser and may have even been arrested. Several comments have pointed out how I should have saved that video for my own safety. I was pretty much going insane at that point and my wife thought nothing of it, thinking I should have just let this go until I showed her my original post. To be honest, I wanted to keep the intervention that we had smaller, that didn't involve her friends, because I felt they did not need to know about it. I just wanted her grandparents and Jess to show up, but I was convinced otherwise. Update. We decided that we would send Abby to weekly therapy. We were under the agreement that I would find and pay for it, and if it worked my wife would pay me back. It did work. Abby improved by a lot. She has realized how much damage she has done and is working to improve things. She has even begun to do volunteer work as well, which I didn't think she would do. She has apologized profusely, realizing how disgusting her prank was. She has also deleted her TikTok account, claiming that's where she got all the ideas from. We decided we would get her a new smartphone for her birthday 3 months ago for the improvement she's shown. We took away all smart devices as punishment. I don't think I mentioned that before. As for me and my wife, I gave her an ultimatum. Since therapy worked for Abby, it would be time we go to couples therapy or else we separate. We were having problems before this whole incident showed up, and now it kinda has to be forced. Past 2 years we've been living more like roommates, and her enabling behavior is finally causing things to fall apart. She reluctantly agreed. It ended up being short-lived. She spoke during our sessions how I take things out of proportion and I went too far posting the incident online. She revealed that she was indeed following my posts, and that's why she changed her mind about the camp. Our therapist then asked us both if we loved each other at all. I was honest and said yes, but it's becoming difficult. My wife on the other hand said she was in love with the idea of me. I needed a minute if I heard that right, and she went on how I was apparently a catch. I was younger than her, had a stable job and owned a house, and she thought my loyalty was a bonus. I don't why, but I asked her if she cheated on me and she said no. But it doesn't matter, she just revealed that she settled for me. I filed for divorce 2 months ago. We had a prenup, so things are going smoothly other than her erroneously claiming some jewelry is hers, but my lawyer seems to think that it should be finalized within 1 to 2 months. So my Subex has moved out along with Abby. My dog misses them, she just sits by the door waiting for hours for them to come back. Stubex is not happy about how things have progressed. She has been calling me a spineless bastard who couldn't just tolerate how things are, and has been saying to everyone who will listen. But behind closed doors she's been blaming Abby for her divorce, claiming it was her behavior that caused it. I know this because she has called me and texted me semi-regularly. Abby is living with her grandparents because apparently her mother can't deal with her right now. I actually liked my in-laws. They were real good people and they apologized for their daughter's actions and even offered to reimburse me for Abby therapy sessions. They told me that they were going to take care of Abby because it seems her mother has finally lost it. I spoke with Abby and assured her that this wasn't her fault. Chances are we were going to divorce regardless. She then told me that she didn't want me to leave and that I was the closest thing to father she ever had. This surprised me. I never really saw myself as a parental figure for Abby. I only really did the minimal. Outside of that, I just paid for school events, supplies, and would carve out some time for her, but I did leave it up to her if she wanted to spend time with me. I told her that maybe when she turns 18 we can pick up where we left off, but until then I don't think we can see each other. Her mother would definitely try to keep her away from me, and to be honest, I need some time away from Abby as well. Things are so quiet at home that it's relaxing. So there you go. I don't even care if my CBEX finds this post. TLDR. Sent Abby to therapy. It worked, but now me and her mother are divorcing and things are just falling apart. Comments. Comment 1. I figured this was where this was headed. Good for you, you deserve better OP, and congrats on being smart enough to get a prenup. OP. You know, when I brought up the prenup she was hesitant and took about 4 months to get her to sign it. Guess that alone should have screamed problems. Comment 2. So your ex-wife didn't get the idea that if she loved you and invested in being more than a roommate, you two would still be married? Like, what's the deal here? To your ex, not you. Advice. Get your dog another dog to be busy. He will forget them at some point. Might also search for a dog daycare somewhere so he can meet other pet friends. OP. Honesty. I think she is just incapable of forming a relationship beyond a superficial one at this point. As for my dog, I did hire a dog walker for her during the day after they moved out. Guess I'll look into doggy daycare too.